Chapter 82. And Lin looked at the coordinates, which were only a few dozen kilometers away from him. However, the enemy was a demon king and 2 blood kings. With his strength, he could at most defeat half a demon king. Should he hand over the remaining 2.5 to Green River Sword Immortal? After thinking for a moment, Lin decided to observe the reactions of the group members for a while longer before making a decision. However, he wasn't going to sit around and do nothing. Instead, he continued to observe as he drew closer to Green River Sword Immortal so that he could act in time. Qing Zhu, Senior Qing He, I'm only of the 7th stage Dao body. I can't participate in a battle of this level. I'd like to help, but I can't. Enlightened Master Black Spirit, ditto. I'm only of the 9th stage Dao body. I can't beat anyone. Senior Qing He, good luck. Crimson Rainbow Sword Immortal. Big Brother Azure River, our sect is also defending against the demon race's attack. As the sect leader, I really can't leave. Hold on. The Savior. Qinghe, I'm still in America. I can't come to save you. Hang in there. Cloud Exploring Daoist. I'm holding a demon subjugation conference at Mount Longhu. Hold on. Green River Sword Immortal's heart throbbed with pain upon seeing this. The Demon King is right behind me, yet you don't want it? You're going to hold a demon subjugation conference? Cloud Exploring Daoist, but the Demon Emperor isn't here. Green River Sword Immortal. Lin. He suddenly felt a great deal of sympathy for Green River Sword Immortal. It looked like the fellow cultivators in the group were planning to carry out the words, Green River Sword Immortal, rest in peace, to the end. Meanwhile, Green River Sword Immortal felt like he had joined a group of fake cultivators. Red Fox Celestial Maiden. Qing He, send your real-time coordinates to the group. I'll help you. Lin was slightly taken aback upon seeing this message. Red Fox Celestial Maiden was a cultivator of the spirit-nurturing intermediate stage in the group chat. She usually lurked in the background and almost never spoke in the group. He had heard Tian Lingling mention this person before, but he didn't think that Celestial Maiden Red Fox would voluntarily appear at this time. Green River Sword Immortal didn't hesitate and immediately sent his real-time location over. Red Fox Immortal quickly said again, all right, wait for me. If we really succeed, I want the Blood King's corpse. Green River Sword Immortal, no problem. After Red Fox Celestial Maiden appeared, the group was in an uproar again. Calm Fairy, a beauty rescuing a hero, this is true love. Taoist Wooden Ox, true love +1. Enlightened Lazarite, true love +2. Tian Lingling, let's just get married. Crackshot Clairvoyant, I've divined that tomorrow will be an auspicious day. Dreamy Voice Fairy, our Flower Sound sect has a picturesque scenery with flowers everywhere. It's a good place to hold a wedding. The Savior, wedding? I want to go too. I'll fly back from America right now. Just like that, the cultivators in the group started popping up one after another, and the atmosphere in the group was once again distorted beyond recognition. Green River Sword Immortal. Celestial Red Fox. The reason why Red Fox Fairy did not want to speak in the group was because there was a bunch of lunatics in the group. They could often divert a serious topic by 1,000 miles. If she messed around too much, she would also become a lunatic. With the addition of Red Fox Immortal, the difference in strength between the two sides began to shrink. Lin thought for a moment. Perhaps he could be of some help in this battle, so he spoke in the group. Fake Taoist Priest Littlein, Green River Sword Immortal, I just so happen to be nearby. I'll also come and help later. Once he said this, a large group of cultivators instantly chimed in. Tian Lingling, fake Taoist priest, I advise you to take back your words as soon as possible. Atomic Bomb Fairy, wow, what a dazzling third wheel. Enlightened Lazarite, fellow cultivator Lin, you have to learn how to help others achieve their goals. Crackshot Clairvoyant, haha, Green River Sword Immortal probably wants to strangle fellow Cultivator and Lin to death, right? And Lin was struck by the urge to cry as he read the string of denunciations. F***ck. What's going on now? He only wanted to help out, so why was it like he was a sinner? Right at this moment, Green River Sword Immortal spoke again. Green River Sword Immortal. Fellow Cultivator and Lin, don't listen to those lunatics. You're quite strong, so you can come over. However, when the battle starts, it's best to wait for Celestial Red Fox to arrive first. Fake Taoist Priest Littlein. Got it. And Lin was a cultivator of the Immortal Rankings Board, second only to cultivators of the Spirit Nurturing stage. Even among the prodigies of the 10th stage Tao body, he was considered one of the strongest. In terms of battle prowess alone, he was already comparable to the weakest cultivator of the Spirit Nurturing stage. Thus, even if he couldn't win against a Demon King of the Spirit Nurturing initial stage, he wouldn't be easily defeated. It was precisely because of this that he had the confidence to help Green River Sword Immortal. About 10 minutes later, Lin arrived at the top of a large mountain. He looked at the real-time location sent by Green River Sword Immortal through WeChat. The distance between the two was already less than 10 kilometers. Green River Sword Immortal was rushing toward his location. Celestial Red Fox's real-time location was also flying toward his location from another direction. F***ck. It can't be such a coincidence, right? They're all gathering here? And Lin's expression darkened, and he hurriedly concealed his aura. He then found a large rock to hide behind. In the distant sky, a black figure was slowly approaching. His green robe fluttered in the wind, and he stood on a flying sword, leaving behind a trail of white clouds in the sky. The only thing that ruined this scene was that he was holding a phone in his hand, and he was typing away. Green River Sword Immortal, Celestial Red Fox, are you ready? Once we meet, we'll immediately turn around and kill him. Celestial Red Fox. Got it. And Lin looked toward the sky in another direction. Celestial Red Fox should be less than 1 kilometer away from him now, but why hadn't he seen her yet? Could it be that she came here from the ground? And Lin suddenly came to a realization. That's right, if she came here from the sky, she'd be discovered by the Demon King and Blood King. Then, turning around and killing her wouldn't have any effect. 5 extremely powerful auras began to slowly converge soon, and Lin saw a lithe and graceful woman shuttling through the forest at an extremely fast speed. Her long, jet-black hair flowed behind her, and she held a crimson longbow in her hand. A blood-colored cloth was wrapped around her slender waist, and there were 3 red tails swaying behind her. She appeared extremely graceful. When Lin saw this figure, he was shocked. Was Celestial Red Fox really a fox? Shouldn't she be a Demon King? Why was she among the human cultivators? He shook his head and tossed aside the questions in his mind. His body began to tense up. Celestial Red Fox and Green River Sword Immortal began to converge at the same place. At this time, Green River Sword Immortal intentionally slowed down so that the distance between him and his enemies could be further reduced. Whoosh! The flying sword beneath Green River Sword Immortal's feet suddenly flew into his hand. His entire body erupted with a soaring aura, and his sword was like a rainbow as he slashed backward. A 10-meter-long green sword projection, like an inverted river, slashed toward the Demon King at the very front with astonishing might. Seeing that Green River Sword Immortal didn't flee and counterattacked, the Demon King of Arrogance was given a fright. He hurriedly activated his protective ability, and a copper wall appeared in front of him. Boom! The sword projection exploded, and the terrifying might tore the copper wall apart. The impact struck the Demon King of Arrogance's body, sending him flying backward and spitting out a mouthful of blood. Although the Demon King of Arrogance was injured, a sinister smile appeared on his face. Since you've decided to retaliate, don't even think about escaping. Boom! At this moment, 2 monstrous crimson figures also caught up. Celestial Red Fox stopped in her tracks and drew her bow to the fullest extent. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged violently around her, bringing with it an endless amount of flames. Then, the flames began to converge on the bowstring, finally condensing into a crimson flame arrow. Whoosh! The crimson flame arrow tore through the air, carrying with it a terrifying might as it shot toward the Demon King of Arrogance. The Demon King of Arrogance had just been injured by Green River Sword Immortal. By the time he noticed the crimson flame arrow, it was already too late. The arrow pierced through his body and set him on fire. Ah! The Demon King of Arrogance screamed in pain as he fell to the ground. F***ck. There's an ambush. The two crimson figures in the sky were enraged. One of them charged toward Green River Sword Immortal, while the other charged toward Celestial Red Fox. A hint of joy appeared on Celestial Red Fox's dainty face. She turned to look at Lin, who was behind the rock, and then pointed in the direction where the Demon King of Arrogance had fallen. Lin nodded confidently and gestured okay with his hand. Just like that, Celestial Red Fox also started charging toward the crimson figure. Meanwhile, Lin chuckled and madly sprinted toward the place where the Demon King of Arrogance had fallen. Chapter 83. The Demon King of Arrogance was struck by the arrow and fell, creating a crater in the ground. Black demonic energy gushed out from his body and engulfed the flames on his body. However, the large hole in his chest, from which black blood flowed continuously, could not be healed. Damn it! That B***th dared to ambush me! The Demon King of Arrogance clutched his chest and glared furiously at Red Fox Celestial Maiden in the distance. However, right at this moment, a figure appeared in the Demon King of Arrogance's field of vision. Lin had arrived. Lin held a golden glazed longsword in his hand as he flew through the air. At this moment, he was a sword immortal. Eat my sword, heaven and earth shattering slash! Lin roared and slashed his golden sword toward the Demon King of Arrogance. Heaven and earth shattering slash? The Demon King of Arrogance was shocked and hurriedly dodged. Boom! The sword slashed a 10-foot-long trench in the ground. That's it? The Demon King of Arrogance blinked. Isn't this a F***king normal vertical slash? Seeing that his attack did not land, Lin roared again. Eat my sword, void shattering slash! The golden glazed sword changed its angle and slashed toward the Demon King of Arrogance's waist. F***ck your void shattering slash! The Demon King of Arrogance roared and directly punched the sword with his bronze-colored fist. Boom! The bronze-colored fist was several times harder than steel. It collided with the sword, and a circular shockwave swept out in all directions. Lin was knocked back by the huge force and almost lost his footing. As expected, it's just a normal horizontal slash. The Demon King of Arrogance's expression darkened. The muscles on his arms bulged and his fists glowed with a brown light. Again. Lin roared and slashed toward the Demon King of Arrogance again. He yelled out one impressive name after another, and the sword continuously collided with the Demon King of Arrogance's body, causing loud explosions. The Demon King of Arrogance became angrier and angrier. This brat's rank was only of the 10th stage Dao body, yet he dared to fight him. This was intolerable for the Demon King of Arrogance. If that was the case, then so be it. But the problem was that this brat was using such crappy sword technique. That's right, every move of that brat's was a common sword technique, simply unsightly. If not for the fact that the Demon King of Arrogance was heavily injured, how could this junior bully and humiliate him like this? After a few more moves, he finally couldn't take it anymore. Ha! Do you really think this Demon King is easy to bully? The Demon King of Arrogance bellowed and unleashed all the power in his body. He threw a punch in Lin's direction. Boom! The terrifying fist energy formed a shockwave, causing the ground within a radius of 5 meters around the Demon King to crack. Lin, who bore the brunt of the attack, was sent flying by the punch, and his sword flew out of his hand. Lin fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, he stood up again and shouted, "Awesome!" Then, he clenched his fists and charged at the Demon King of Arrogance again. The Demon King of Arrogance's eyes widened. That was an attack he had just unleashed with all his might. If an ordinary cultivator of the 10th stage Tao body were to take this punch head-on, they would definitely be killed on the spot. However, this cultivator in front of him was still full of vigor after spitting out a mouthful of blood. His aura hadn't weakened in the slightest. What kind of freak was this? What the Demon King of Arrogance didn't know was that after Lin's body had been tempered by the Earth Lotus Supreme skill, the toughness of his body had long since surpassed that of an ordinary cultivator of the spirit-nurturing stage. Moreover, he had also swallowed the second-grade immortal pill, the ultimate immortal fortune pill, personally refined by Chang'e. Thus, his body was brimming with vitality. With his extremely high toughness and powerful vitality, that punch just now didn't pose much of a threat to Lin. Lin and the Demon King of Arrogance were once again locked in battle. This time, he didn't use his sword. Instead, he clashed fists with the Demon King of Arrogance. Boom, boom, boom. The collision of their fists set off shocking shockwaves. It was as if a series of bombs had exploded, blasting deep craters into the ground. The figures of Lin and the Demon King of Arrogance flashed about rapidly, exchanging blows. In the beginning, it was still fist against fist. Later on, it was a battle of fists. This was a battle between men. You punch me in the chest, and I punch you in the stomach. It was a battle of strength and defense. Then, the Demon King of Arrogance spat out mouthfuls of blood. He was overwhelmed with shock. He didn't think that Lin's close-quarters combat would actually be so much more powerful than his swordsmanship. Not only was his defense freakishly high, but even his attack power was also extremely powerful. The Demon King of Arrogance was already severely injured to begin with. After exchanging blows again and again, his wounds tore open and he clearly suffered more injuries. He felt that he couldn't continue fighting like this. Otherwise, there was a real possibility that he would be defeated by this little cultivator of the 10th stage Tao body. Demonic Dragon Mystifying Fist. A black dragon suddenly coiled around the Demon King of Arrogance's thick arm. With a terrifying fist intent, it transformed into a series of afterimages and enveloped Lin's entire body, leaving him with nowhere to hide. Lin closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his eyes had become snow white. Divine Inspection Technique. Activate. Flaw Analysis. Lin's fist moved. It carried with it the power of breaking through the wind, and was enveloped by the golden glow of the mountain-quaking fist. The golden fist pierced through the afterimages of the Demon King's fists and entered through an opening, landing a punch on the Demon King's waist. Boom! The terrifying power behind the fist caused the Demon King of Arrogance's body to bend into a C shape. Ah! He screamed in agony. Then, his body flew into the distance like a cannonball. His body only came to a stop after he smashed into a mound. The Demon King of Arrogance continuously spat out blood on the ground. His entire body trembled, and his face was filled with disbelief. How is this possible? My demonic dragon mystic fist was actually broken by a cultivator of the 10th stage Tao body? After a fierce battle, Lin was also a bit exhausted. Sword, come! He yelled loudly, and the golden glazed sword flew into his hand again. Then, he walked toward the Demon King step by step. Thank you, Lin said. The Demon King of Arrogance. Lin, it's been a long time since I've had such a satisfying battle. You allowed me to fully understand my own strength. Therefore, I'll give you a dignified death. The Demon King of Arrogance finally understood. He finally understood why Lin had used a third-rate sword technique to fight him in the beginning. He also understood why Lin had chosen to fight him barehanded. He also understood why Lin was able to take him by surprise even after using his ultimate technique. So, he was just a sparring partner from the very beginning, PFFF. The demon king of arrogance was so enraged that he spat out another mouthful of blood. He had never felt such humiliation before. He was a mighty demon king, yet he was reduced to being a sparring partner for a cultivator of the 10th stage Tao body. He was toyed around by a mere cultivator. How could the proud and aloof demon king tolerate something like this happening to him? "I'm going to kill you!" the demon king of arrogance roared loudly. He immediately unleashed a divine power that overdrafted his life force, purple lightning demonic spear. Dazzling purple lightning suddenly exploded in front of him. Then, it condensed into a long spear made of purple lightning. A sense of extreme danger enveloped Lin's entire body. This attack was very dangerous. However, when he looked at the terrifying lightning spear, he suddenly came to a realization. "Go penetrate through his body!" The demon king of arrogance roared loudly. This was his final attack, and it gave him all his strength and hope. This attack could even slay a cultivator of the spirit-nurturing stage with a single strike. Whoosh! The purple lightning demonic spear pierced toward Lin with unparalleled might. Its speed was extremely fast, and it arrived in the blink of an eye. However, Lin only extended a finger. Suddenly, the purple lightning demonic spear stopped in front of Lin, unable to advance an inch further. The demon king of arrogance's pupils contracted, and his face was filled with disbelief. "How is this possible?" Lin smiled faintly. He felt a trace of gratitude toward the demon king of arrogance. Thus, he didn't want the demon king to die without knowing why. Thus, he explained, "This is my lightning manipulation technique. It's an immortal spell derived from the thunder essence cultivation method. Theoretically speaking, it can draw in all lightning." Hearing this, the demon king of arrogance's heart convulsed. His lips twitched, and his expression was filled with despair. After a long while, he finally squeezed out a sentence. You're cheating. I don't want to be your sparring partner anymore, all right?" Lin shook his head and said solemnly, "You have to finish what you started." Saying this, he flicked his finger, and the lightning of the purple lightning demonic spear obeyed his command. It obediently and nimbly wound around his longsword. Then, he quickly rushed toward the demon king of arrogance. The longsword in his hand glowed with purple lightning. He roared, "Eat my sword, purple lightning divine sword." It was still the original purple lightning divine sword, but it had a different flavor. Looking at the purple lightning divine sword, the demon king of arrogance's eyes welled up with tears. Boom! The purple lightning divine sword slashed down on the demon king of arrogance's body. Heaven and earth exploded, and it sounded like the furious roar of the 9 heavens' mysterious thunder. The terrifying flash of lightning directly turned the demon king's body into charcoal, and Lin confidently shook his sword, his back facing the demon king of arrogance. "This is truly an evenly matched battle," Yi Zichen muttered. "However, in the end it's still I and Lin who wins." Chapter 84. After dealing with the demon king of arrogance, he turned to look at Green River Sword Immortal and Red Fox Celestial Maiden. The 2 Blood Kings, one male and one female, both had golden hair and crimson eyes. They had a pair of huge bat wings on their backs, looking a bit like the vampires in Western movies. However, the spells they were using now were much more exaggerated than the vampires in movies. The vampire bats in the sky bared their bloody fangs and swooped toward the 2 of them. 2 30-meter-long blood dragons bared their fangs and brandished their claws, waiting for an opportunity to strike, releasing an aura of death. Red Fox Celestial Maiden was very powerful. She released a flaming tornado to protect herself. Once the vampire bats came into contact with the red flames, they were instantly incinerated. Her fair and slender arms drew the crimson longbow as fast as a gust of wind. Powerful arrows continuously shot toward the Blood King in the distance. He didn't even have a chance to get close and was firmly suppressed in the distance. On the other side, Green River Sword Immortal was having a bit of a hard time. This female Blood King had an extremely sexy figure. She had slender legs, a slim waist, and two towering peaks that swayed with her body. Coupled with her fiery red lips and seductive almond-shaped eyes, Green River Sword Immortal really couldn't take it anymore. However, what he couldn't take the most was the terrifying regenerative ability of the Blood Tribe. Green River Sword Immortal fought at close range. Flashes of sword light were extremely domineering. Even the Blood King couldn't completely dodge his sword slashes. However, when these sword slashes landed on the Blood King's body, the wounds on his body healed quickly. The Blood King's attacks were also extremely powerful. She controlled the 30-meter-long Blood Dragon, which carried an overwhelming might as it pounced toward Green River Sword Immortal. Every attack carried a fatal danger. If Green River Sword Immortal couldn't severely injure this Blood King with one attack, he would probably die of exhaustion here. Seeing this, Unlin felt like he still had to lend Green River Sword Immortal a hand. His fingertips furtively moved, and a concealed lightning manipulation technique was gathering energy. This was the technique he used when he struck the Demon King of Wisdom. It attracted the divine lightning in the sky. The lightning would slowly accumulate in the sky and wouldn't show itself until it fell. This female Blood King stood atop the Crimson Dragon and charged toward Green River Sword Immortal again and again. Her eyes were glued to the azure figure with an extremely greedy gaze. She licked her tender and fiery lips. The more powerful a human cultivator is, the more delicious their blood is. I really want it. I can't wait anymore. The Blood King's breathing hastened as his towering chest heaved violently. His white arms began to spread open. Suddenly, the entire space began to tremble. Large amounts of blood spewed out of the Blood King's body as several blood dragons condensed in midair, emitting a boundless aura. "I'll savor your blood," the Blood King said in an extremely seductive voice as he gazed at Green River Sword Immortal. Green River Sword Immortal's expression was extremely grave. This kind of power was already beyond what he could withstand. Rumble! The blood dragons in the sky opened their bloody mouths and lunged at him at the same time. Each blood dragon contained a terrifying power, giving him an extremely dangerous feeling. The long sword in Green River Sword Immortal's hand glowed with a brilliant azure light as he prepared to unleash his most powerful strike. "Come, baby, ha 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 ha." The Blood King laughed excitedly as her slender body trembled. Rumble! A bolt of divine lightning descended from the sky and directly struck the Blood King's head, charring her entire body black. Her eyes widened as a wisp of charred smoke drifted out from her laughing mouth. The several blood dragons also suddenly stopped in their tracks. Green River Sword Immortal took advantage of this opportunity. His long sword glowed with a boundless azure sword projection as he slashed down at the Blood King in the distance. The sword projection pierced through the sky and flashed past the Blood King's body. Then, it swiftly and violently sliced her body in half. In the sky, the blood dragons suddenly exploded and the Blood King's body slowly collapsed. Green River Sword Immortal panted heavily. That strike just then had expended a large amount of his vital energy. However, the blood mist formed by the blood dragons instantly began to move and converge toward the two halves of the Blood King's body. As the blood mist permeated the air, the two halves of the Blood King's body began to heal. Seeing this, Green River Sword Immortal immediately charged toward the Blood King. The long sword in his hand once again unleashed an astonishing might. "Blood explosion!" the Blood King roared. Her long hair stood on end as her aura soared to the extreme. Rumble! The blood mist began to violently explode. Green River Sword Immortal was blasted back by the shock waves of energy. The female Blood King spread her wings and, with a flap, burst forth with terrifying speed as she charged toward a certain place. And that direction was where Unlin was. "Be careful!" Green River Sword Immortal yelled. Unlin had already seen the Blood King. Although he didn't know how she suddenly became so strong, he was sure that she had used some kind of mystic technique and wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Mountain quaking fist. And Lin punched toward the figure. Bam! The Blood King was pulverized by his golden fist. And Lin was dazed. Just as he was in a daze, a black blood figure had already teleported to his side and reformed. Ropes of blood suddenly appeared and tightly wrapped around his body. At this moment, a snow-white hand reached out and strangled his neck. Just like that, the sexy Blood King appeared beside him, sealing off all his movements. And Lin. Seeing this, Green River Sword Immortal was shocked. He didn't expect the Blood King to be able to explode with even more power after suffering such a heavy blow. Little Cultivator, do you like me so much that you have to flirt with me? The female Blood King brought her red lips close to Lin's neck and spoke in an extremely soft voice. Hee, beautiful big sister, how about you let me go on account of how much I like you? Lin said some trash talk, but in his mind, he was thinking about how to escape from her evil clutches. I can't do that. Big sister, I'm severely injured and need your help. Let me tell you a little secret. As long as I drink all of your blood, I will be able to immediately recover my vitality and become lively again. Saying this, she stuck out her soft and sticky tongue and licked Lin's neck. Being licked like this, Lin's whole body trembled. The faint smell of blood drifted from the Blood King's mouth, causing him to feel a wave of disgust. If this continues, he's really going to be sucked dry. He looked toward Green River Sword Immortal, only to find that Green River Sword Immortal could only panic at the side. After all, he was already treated like a captive. If Green River Sword Immortal acted rashly, he might accidentally kill him as well. You can't do this. And Lin had no way out. He secretly activated the lightning manipulation technique that he had secretly prepared. Lightning descended from the sky. However, this time, the female Blood King was prepared. A wall of blood instantly materialized and blocked above her head. Boom! Lightning exploded and the wall of blood was charred black by the lightning. However, it was unable to hit the Blood King. Little Cultivator, are you so eager to flirt with Big Sister? Alright, you can't wait, Big Sister can't wait either. Let us fuse. A coquettish and soft voice traveled over. Hearing this terrible line, Lin almost cried. Then, he felt a sharp pain on his neck. He could feel his blood flowing out of his body. The female Blood King let out a coquettish cry. However, she suddenly pushed Lin away. Lin was dumbfounded. He turned around to look at the female Blood King. Wasn't she going to fuse with him? Why did she push him away? This time, the female Blood King screamed in pain as if she had gone crazy. She started to run around, waving her hands frantically. Terrifying energy destroyed everything in her surroundings. That's right, after sucking Lin's blood, she really was alive and kicking. However, she was really alive and kicking. Green River Sword Immortal stepped forward and positioned himself in front of Lin, shielding him behind his back. Mr. Lin, are you alright? Lin shook his head and clutched his neck. Apart from a little anemia, I should be fine. Green River Sword Immortal. Right at this moment, the female Blood King suddenly screamed in pain. Little Cultivator, you actually poisoned your blood. I definitely won't forgive you. However, in the next moment, as soon as she finished shouting, her entire body twitched, and her body fell to the ground. Looking at the female Blood King who was foaming at the mouth on the ground, Lin and Green River Sword Immortal looked at each other. Chapter 85. Green River Sword Immortal fell into an uncontrollable silence as he gazed at the female Blood King who was foaming at the mouth. After a long while, he said in shock, "That's right. Fellow Taoist Lin poisoned the blood. How formidable! How did you do it?" Lin's chest tightened. "Don't ask me. I didn't poison it." Green River Sword Immortal clearly didn't believe him, and he continued to stare at Lin in shock. Lin, They knew that the most important thing right now wasn't whether or not Lin had poisoned them, but to confirm whether the Blood Queen was dead or alive. When they arrived in front of the female Blood King, they discovered that her eyes were wide open and she was foaming at the mouth. Her body temperature had dissipated, and she was already a little cold. Her life force had also dissipated. What a potent poison! To think that it could poison a Blood King with such powerful vitality, to death in a single breath. Green River Sword Immortal exclaimed in astonishment. Then, he turned to look at Lin with deep admiration in his eyes. Lin's mouth twitched. Don't look at me like that. I don't know what's going on either. Green River Sword Immortal chuckled. Then, Lin, please help me out. Lin blinked. What kind of favor? Green River Sword Immortal, lend me some blood. Lin, borrow some blood? Borrow your sister. Could he even return the blood he borrowed? Green River Sword Immortal, Mr. Lin, your blood may be lethal to the Blood Tribe. So, for the victory of this battle, please. Lin fell silent at the sight of Green River Sword Immortal's righteous expression. He then looked in the direction of Red Fox Celestial Maiden. There, the intense battle had yet to end. Lin heaved a soft sigh. His body finally cooperated with Green River Sword Immortal and began to bleed. With a pained expression, he cut open his own arm and allowed his blood to stain the blade of Green River Sword Immortal's sword. He felt a little dizzy. I only had my blood sucked by a Blood King once. This time, he took the initiative to bleed again. How could he not faint? Green River Sword Immortal looked at his sword with satisfaction and laughed heartily. This is a blade covered in poison. Lin's vision darkened when he heard this, and he roared in his heart, Damn your sister's poison. This is my blood, this is the essence of my life. He tried to calm himself down and kept repeating in his mind, I sacrificed my blood for the love and peace of the world. I sacrificed my blood for the love and peace of the world. True enough. After reading it a few more times, he felt much better. Green River Sword Immortal also began to move. He flew toward Red Fox Celestial Maiden and joined the battle. The male Blood King in the sky was already suppressed by Red Fox Immortal. When he sensed his surroundings, he was alarmed. He suddenly realized that the Demon King of Arrogance and the female Blood King had been killed. The Demon King of Arrogance had been severely injured before, so he was not particularly surprised that he was killed. However, the female Blood Monarch had a lot of trump cards and an extremely powerful life force. Who on earth had the ability to kill her? Just as the male Blood King scanned his surroundings, Green River Sword Immortal was already flying toward him. Could it be him? He actually has this kind of power. The female Blood King could even escape from a cultivator of the spirit-nurturing final stage. How could she have been killed by this spirit-nurturing initial stage, Sword Immortal? Although the male Blood King was bewildered, he knew that now was not the time to be tangled up. The most important thing now was to escape. The male Blood King summoned over 1,000 bloodthirsty bats, which pounced toward Red Fox Celestial Maiden and Green River Sword Immortal. Meanwhile, he took advantage of this opportunity to use the blood escape technique to escape. Seeing that the male Blood King wanted to escape, Red Fox Celestial Maiden immediately drew her bow to a full crescent. A crimson arrow exuding a terrifying power transformed into a streak of light and pierced through the bloodthirsty bats. Then, it pierced through the male Blood King's chest. The male Blood King spat out a mouthful of blood and his body froze. However, he quickly recovered and continued to escape. He knew that such a powerful arrow couldn't be shot again in a short period of time. As long as he continued to escape, no one would be able to catch up to him. However, just as his body froze, Green River Sword Immortal had already passed through the bloodthirsty bats and arrived behind him. Like flowing water, a green sword projection slashed toward the male Blood King's back. The male Blood King didn't dodge or evade. Instead, he continued to fly forward. He humphed coldly in his mind. Although this sword strike was fast, it didn't carry much power. So what if Green River Sword Immortal managed to land a strike like this? Based on his powerful regenerative abilities, his wound would definitely heal in a short period of time. Rip! The long sword slashed a bloody wound into the Blood King's back. Green River Sword Immortal didn't give chase. After unleashing this strike with all his might, he no longer had the strength to chase after the Blood King. He could only look forward to what was about to happen, seeing that he had already escaped from the two of them. The male Blood King threatened, "Just you wait. One day I'll come back and suck your blood dry." Saying this, another wail of anguish sounded from the sky. "Ah!" The male Blood King howled in pain. It was as if all the blood in his body had started to die, and his vitality was continuously being stripped away. "What did you do to me?" The male Blood King turned to look at Green River Sword Immortal and yelled in shock. A faint smile appeared on Green River Sword Immortal's face as he held his long sword horizontally in front of him. "This is a blade smeared with deadly poison." The male Blood King's lips trembled as he stared blankly at Green River Sword Immortal. In the end, he started foaming at the mouth and his body fell to the ground. Red Fox Celestial Maiden flew toward Green River Sword Immortal, her beautiful face filled with shock. Then, she suspiciously pointed at the long sword in Green River Sword Immortal's hand and tilted her head. Green River Sword Immortal smiled casually. He pointed at Lin, who was sitting on the ground dejectedly due to excessive blood loss, and said, "This sword of mine is coated with Lin's blood. This blood is lethal poison." Hearing this, Red Fox Celestial Maiden's eyes lit up and she immediately flew toward Lin. Seeing that the last Blood King had been dealt with, Lin finally relaxed and sat down on the ground. *T. I feel like I've been hollowed out. Lin spat angrily. Putting aside the fierce battle with the Demon King of Arrogance, having his blood sucked by a Blood King and having his blood borrowed by Green River Sword Immortal was simply terrible. At this moment, he really wanted to buy 2 bottles of Treasure of Kidney to taste. However, before he could enjoy the good times after the battle, Red Fox Celestial Maiden ran over and looked at him as if she was looking at a weirdo. "What are you looking at?" Lin asked in a daze. Red Fox Celestial Maiden was a little embarrassed as she pointed at the cut on Lin's arm that had just been drained of blood, her face slightly red. Lin blinked and looked at his arm. The wound there had already healed a little, but it wasn't completely healed yet. Red Fox Celestial Maiden probably wanted to help him heal it. Thinking of this, Lin's heart warmed. True love exists in this world. Thus, he was a little moved and nodded at Red Fox Celestial Maiden, expressing his agreement. Red Fox Celestial Maiden smiled like a flower and excitedly came to Lin's side. She stretched out her jade-white hand. Rip! Lin's arm, which had just healed, was once again torn open and blood gushed out. Just like that, Lin lost too much blood. Death. Chapter 86. Lin relied on his cockroach-like vitality to survive. He gritted his teeth in hatred as he looked at the shameless couple in front of him. What kind of *T true love exists in this world? It's just the deep malice of this world. Red Fox Celestial Maiden didn't discover anything from his blood. Afterward, she ran off to study the Blood King's corpse. Green River Sword Immortal looked at Lin with a hint of admiration in his eyes. "Mr. Lin, your blood is truly useful. If we encounter another blood tribe cultivator in the future..." Before Green River Sword Immortal could finish his sentence, Lin immediately cut him off. "No, Scram." Green River Sword Immortal scratched his head in embarrassment when he saw Lin's firm refusal. Then, he created a group chat. In the Cultivators of the World Unite to Protect Earth group chat, Green River Sword Immortal. "Haha, we successfully killed a Demon King and 2 Blood Kings." Once Green River Sword Immortal said this, the cultivators in the group chat all popped up and the atmosphere became lively. "The Savior! Heavens, this is a huge achievement! We really killed them?" Dreamy Voice Fairy. As expected, a man and a woman together can always create miracles. Crack shot clairvoyant. Not only can we create miracles, but we can also create life. Atomic bomb fairy. Golden jade. Green river sword immortal sent a smiling emoji. Then, he said, clairvoyant, the next time we meet, I can destroy a life. Crack shot clairvoyant. I was just joking, don't take it seriously. Right at this moment, Red Fox Celestial Maiden suddenly popped up and sent a smiling emoji. Red Fox Celestial Maiden. A man and a woman together can indeed destroy a life. Clairvoyant, just you wait. Seeing this message, Clairvoyant was so anxious that he wanted to cry. Green River Sword Immortal could still tease him a little, but Red Fox Celestial Maiden was a woman of her word. Clairvoyant was so scared that he planned to find a place to hide. At this moment, Green River Sword Immortal continued. Green River Sword Immortal. However, it's all thanks to Mr. and Lin that we were able to kill a Demon King and 2 Blood Kings. He can be said to be the greatest contributor. As soon as he said that, the fellow Taoists were immediately interested. Although Enlin was very powerful, it should still be quite difficult for him to deal with enemies of the spirit-nurturing stage. Why was Green River Sword Immortal referring to him as the greatest contributor to their victory? Tian Lingling. No way! Isn't fake Taoist priest going to be a bystander? Taoist Lazarite. Oh, the biggest contributor is fellow Taoist and Lin? What do you mean? Calm Celestial Maiden asked. Could it be that Enlin did a crucial favor in a certain part of the battle? At this moment, Green River Sword Immortal opened his mouth again to speculate. Green River Sword Immortal, let me put it this way. 1 Demon King and 2 Blood Kings were all killed by Enlin. The Savior, Golden Jade, Tian Lingling. He killed all of them? The cultivators in the group fell silent. In the end, Taoist Lazarite couldn't help but ask, Green River, you're not joking, right? Isn't Enlin only at the 10th stage Tao body? Taoist Lazarite voiced out the thoughts of all the cultivators in the group. What would a cultivator of the 10th stage Tao body have to do to kill 3 enemies of the spirit-nurturing stage? Was he supposed to leave all of them in critical condition for him to replenish? That was clearly impossible. Green River Sword Immortal. After Red Fox Celestial Maiden and I severely wounded the Demon King, Enlin took care of it by himself. As for the other 2 Blood Kings, one was poisoned to death by sucking his blood. The other one was poisoned to death by me after I dipped my weapon in his blood. Tian Lingling. 2 Blood Kings were poisoned to death by his blood? Taoist Lazarite. Ha, poisoned to death? I'd rather believe you when you say that he killed 2 Blood Kings with a single slash. Calm Celestial Maiden. Green River Sword Immortal, are you saying that Enlin poisoned his blood? Green River Sword Immortal. No, I'm saying that his entire being was poisoned. This is what I admire the most about him. Tian Lingling. Wow, fake Taoist priest is so awesome. Atomic Bomb Fairy. Although I don't really understand, as expected, Enlin is very strong. The Savior. How about this, why don't we confer the title of Poison Lord on Enlin? Taoist Wooden Ox. Agreed. Dreamy Voice Fairy. +1 Cloud Exploring Taoist. +1 In fact, Enlin was also secretly observing the situation on his phone. When he saw that the title of Poison Lord had basically been confirmed by the cultivators in the group, he closed his phone with tears in his eyes. He looked up at the sky, not allowing his tears to fall. Afterward, Red Fox Celestial Maiden, who couldn't speak, carried the Blood King's corpse back to the Green Hill Mystic Realm. Green River Sword Immortal patted Enlin's shoulder and said in a friendly manner, Poison Lord, I'll fly you back to Chengdu. Enlin's lips twitched. Poison my A**s. Having lost too much blood, he didn't have the strength to retort and could only nod woodenly. Just like that, Enlin and Green River Sword Immortal flew back to Chengdu. Enlin originally thought that after returning to Chengdu, he would be able to live a comfortable life. However, what he didn't expect was, in this information age, the title of Poison Lord spread throughout the entire cultivation world in a single day. The next day, the sect leaders of Wudong, Kunlun, Longhu, and Shangqing of the 10 great immortal sects all came to visit Poison Lord. These 4 sect leaders were the only 4 soul formation stage cultivators in Hua Nation. Their visit to Poison Lord naturally wasn't a simple visit. They were actually here to study Poison Lord. Just like that, Lin started to cry. Poison Lord, let me touch you, the sect leader of Wudong, Taoist priest Xiun, chuckled as he reached out to touch Lin. At this moment, an old man with white hair and beard angrily rebuked, "Stop messing around, what are you touching?" Lin looked at this old man gratefully. He was Heavenly Master Zhang of Longhu Mountain. Be reasonable, if you want to study it thoroughly, you have to rely on this. Celestial Teacher Zhang pulled out a syringe and looked at Lin with a benevolent expression. Lin's vision darkened at the sight of the syringe. F***CK. Drawing blood? Do you have to be so ruthless? Because of the large amount of blood loss yesterday, he felt dizzy whenever he saw blood. He felt like he was suffering from syncope. No, it should be hemophobia. He was afraid of the mere mention of blood. Don't be afraid, Poison Lord. We won't draw much, just a little. A man in a green robe around 50 years old comforted him. He was the sect leader of the Kunlun Immortal Sect, Spirit Child Sure. As he spoke, he set up a research formation. Oh my, Poison Lord, what's a little blood loss for a man? If you feel uncomfortable bleeding alone, this Taoist will accompany you. The sect leader of the Shangqing Immortal Sect, Taoist Yumu, spoke boldly. As he spoke, he took out a large saber and pretended to cut his arm. Lin initially thought that this brawny man was just putting on an act. Then, his face was splattered with blood. F***CK. Where did this lunatic come from? Lin roared incessantly in his heart. Then, he felt his chest tighten and his heart beat faster. Damn, his hemophobia was acting up again. Chapter 87. In the end, Lin still bowed to the forces of evil. The 4 soul formation stage cultivators continued to plead with him. He couldn't just keep wasting time. His heart ached when he saw the syringe plunge into his arm. When he saw the bright red blood slowly flow into the syringe, he felt his chest tighten and his breathing quicken. He hurriedly averted his gaze. After drawing the blood, the sect leaders of the 4 great sects began to conduct on-site research. They used an array formation to examine the structure of the blood, immortal spells to examine the characteristics of the blood, and other small animals to conduct experiments. The more they examined, the more confused and distressed they became. Because this blood, it was 2F***King normal. Even the small animals that had drunken Lin's blood were alive and kicking. Is this really the blood of the Poison Lord? I suspect that I drew fake blood. The sect leader of Dragon Tiger Mountain, Celestial Master Zhang, was confused. How about we do another tube? The sect leader of the Shangqing Immortal Sect, Taoist Yumu, suggested. Lin was about to call the police. Another tube? These F***King people are scarier than vampires. Don't scare fellow Taoist Poison Lord. The sect leader of Wudong Sect, Taoist Master Su Yun, waved his hands with a benevolent expression. This blood is indeed not poisonous to ordinary life forms. I'm afraid this blood contains some kind of mysterious power that is extremely poisonous to the blood tribe. Then, he turned to Lin with a pleading expression. Fellow Taoist Poison Lord, this humble Taoist has a request. Lin was shocked and immediately said, I refuse. An awkward expression appeared on Taoist Master Su Yun's face. He hadn't even said anything yet. Why was he already rejected? Was he really that scary? Seeing Lin's expression, the sect leader of the Kunlun Immortal Sect, Spirit Child Sure, could roughly guess what Lin was thinking. This crusade against the Demon Emperor is the most important event in the entire cultivation world. As far as I know, the Demon Emperor and the Blood God both have the habit of carrying storage rings with them. As long as you cooperate with us and donate blood to create highly poisonous weapons, we'll let you choose one of their storage rings. How about it? Unlin felt like spitting out a mouthful of blood when he heard the term lethal poison weapon. However, he had to admit that if he donated blood, he would be able to obtain a storage ring. This condition was very tempting. One had to realize that the Demon Emperor and the Blood God were both soul formation stage mighty figures, and their storage rings were where they stored their treasures. How could it not be tempting to obtain all of the assets of a soul formation stage mighty figure? Just like that, Unlin fell into deep thought. 1 minute later, Unlin, who said he didn't want it, obediently lay down on the bed. Come on! For the love and peace of this world, he was willing to sacrifice his blood and body. Cough. I digress. Anyway, in the end, 500 milliliters of Unlin's blood was extracted. One could imagine the great battle that would follow. The scene of the human cultivators using blades covered in Unlin's blood to fight against the Blood Tribe. In the end, the few big shots of the immortal cultivation world left gratefully and satisfactorily, continuing to devote themselves to the preparation work for the upcoming battle. Unlin was as weak as a salted fish, lying flat on the bed. The current him could no longer be described as feeling like his body was being hollowed out. He felt like his body was being squeezed dry. Earth is so scary, I really want to go back to the celestial court. Xianyuan Cheng was still having fun at the bottom of the sea. Su Xiaolan was still having fun in the sky. Before Green River Sword Immortal left, he gave Unlin many pills as a reward for his assistance. Unlin looked at these pills. There were pills that could quickly replenish vital energy, pills that could increase the power of immortal spells for a short period of time, pills that could calm one's mind, pills that could boost one's sex drive, pills that could replenish calcium, but there were no pills that could replenish one's blood. Ah! Living is so tiring. Unlin lamented as he lay on the bed. The upcoming battle of the human cultivators had nothing to do with him anymore. The celestial court would most likely send Earth Immortals over to deal with it. Because Earth Immortals were very powerful, passing through the southern heavenly gate would cause the teleportation space to become unstable, so they would need a few days to prepare. Unlin calculated the time. He should be able to see the Earth Immortals from the celestial court in 1 or 2 days. He opened his phone and looked at the contents of the Cultivator group chat. Everyone was talking about the ancient jade pond in Tibet. Apparently, last night, a strange phenomenon descended from the sky in the vicinity of the ancient jade pond in Tibet. A 5-colored rainbow flew across the mountains, and from time to time, there would be celestial music lingering around the pond. This had already attracted the attention of many cultivators. Some people speculated that this phenomenon had something to do with what the Demon Emperor and the Blood God were going to do next. Many cultivators had already rushed to the ancient jade pond, but up until now, they still hadn't found anything. Taoist priest Lin Yi, who was supposed to team up with Tian Lingling to capture ghosts, was unable to leave because he had to investigate a sudden incident in Tibet. And now there was no news of that Taoist priest. Knock, knock, knock. A series of knocks suddenly sounded on the door. Could it be that someone had returned to the hotel? That couldn't be. Weren't Xianyuan Cheng and the others still outside? Although Unlin was confused, he still propped up his weak body and climbed up with difficulty to open the door. Fake Taoist priest. A petite figure suddenly appeared before pouncing onto Unlin's body and almost pushing him to the ground. Tian Lingling, be gentle. Unlin yelled loudly. His body was extremely weak right now, and now that a loli had pounced on him, he really couldn't take it anymore. Tian Lingling ignored him and continued to sniff at his body with her delicate nose as if he was some kind of rare treasure. This doesn't make sense, she muttered. It feels and smells very normal. It doesn't seem like a body that could poison a Blood King to death, Unlin. All right, Lingling, don't mess around. Can't you see that Unlin's body isn't very well right now? At this moment, an extremely gentle and pleasant voice sounded. Unlin looked out the door and discovered the classical beauty Dongfang Shui, whose features were as beautiful as a painting. She stood silently outside the door with a tranquil smile on her face. Good afternoon, calm celestial maiden. Out of the instincts of a brain-dead fan, Unlin immediately recovered some energy and hurriedly greeted her. Dongfang Shui raised the bag of ingredients in her hand with a smile. Unlin, Lingling and I deeply sympathize with what you've been through, so today, I'll let you have a taste of my cooking. My God! Tears welled up in Unlin's eyes upon hearing this. What a blissful feeling this was! His idol was cooking for him. True love exists in this world. Unlin invited Dongfang Shui and Tian Lingling into the room. There was a separate kitchen in the presidential suite, and Tian Lingling and Dongfang Shui were cooking in the kitchen while Unlin lay on the bed and continued to rest. In the kitchen, Dongfang Shui hummed an alluring tune as she waved a kitchen knife through the air. In the blink of an eye, ribs, green peppers, carrots, and other ingredients were neatly sliced and diced. Meanwhile, Tian Lingling was busy fiddling with the ingredients and adding seasonings. Unlin lay on the bed and listened to Dongfang Shui humming a tune as he inhaled the alluring aroma wafting from the kitchen. His eyes narrowed in satisfaction. On the outskirts of Rong City, a dazzling white light suddenly burst forth from the White Cloud Monastery's teleportation spell formation. A tall and slender beauty in a black silk dress walked out. She held a copper-colored book in her left hand and wore a pair of red-rimmed glasses, giving her an air of sophistication and sophistication. A middle-aged man in a flowing white robe with a long sword hanging from his waist also walked out with a yawn. Yuan, where are we going next? The man asked. Let's go find my adorable science representative first. A light smile appeared on Madagascar's face as an expression of anticipation appeared on his face. Chapter 88. In the evening, Unlin tasted the dishes personally cooked by Dongfang Shui. Not only did these dishes look and taste good, but they also had the effect of replenishing energy and promoting blood circulation. He was full of praises for them. After a hearty meal, Unlin felt as if he had recovered a lot of energy. It was as if he had eaten a kidney treasure, full of energy. After that, the three of them walked out of the hotel and strolled along the small path. Unlin's entire body felt comfortable as he enjoyed the night breeze. An incomparable feeling of contentment filled his entire body. Phew, this was a great meal. Thank you all so much. He stretched his body and thanked the two women beside him. Tian Lingling was wearing a beige dress. She held Dongfang Shui's hand and walked shoulder to shoulder with her. There was a head's difference in height, making her appear very petite and adorable. Hearing Unlin's thanks, she immediately replied, "Why are you being so polite with us, fake Taoist priest? Why don't you accompany us on a trip to Tibet?" Hearing this, Unlin was startled. Then, he thought of something and smiled. "You're worried about your Uncle Master Lin Yi, right?" Tian Lingling nodded, a little embarrassed. Although many disciples of Dragon Tiger Mountain have already gone to Tibet, they still haven't found any traces of Uncle Master. I'm afraid that Unlin heaved a resigned sigh. This was clearly a very troublesome matter to deal with. This Lin Yi was one of the most powerful cultivators of Dragon Tiger Mountain. He was a cultivator of the spirit-nurturing intermediate stage. If a cultivator of this level encountered a desperate situation, it would probably be quite troublesome. With Unlin and the others' cultivation base, how could they help with this kind of trouble? Tian Lingling saw Unlin's hesitation and squeezed out a smile. Forget it. Fake Taoist priest, with your small body, you'll also suffer from altitude sickness if you go to Tibet. Let's not go for now. Unlin looked at the slightly stubborn little face of the girl beside him and thought that if he didn't agree to go to Tibet, she would probably insist on going herself. How about this? I'll make some preparations tomorrow, and then we'll set off together. To be honest, I've never been to Tibet before, so I'm quite looking forward to it. Lin said with a smile. Really? Tian Lingling's eyes lit up upon hearing this, and her adorable features were filled with joy. Lin was just about to speak when a familiar female voice came from the sky. There's no need to wait until tomorrow. Let's go tonight. Then, a huge book descended from the sky, and a beautiful woman in black silk sat on it. She looked at Lin with a mysterious smile. Teacher Yuing, why are you here? Lin exclaimed. Yo, did I interrupt your date with these two little beauties? Madagascar blinked with a smile and teased with interest. Dongfang Shui immediately blushed upon hearing this. Tian Lingling yelled, That's right, sorry for disturbing you. Say, who are you? Lin. This crazy girl, could it be that she didn't hear him addressing that girl as Teacher Yuing? Ha ha ha, this little sister is quite interesting. Madagascar looked at Tian Lingling with interest in his eyes. By the way, how did you find me, teacher? Lin had already guessed why Madagascar was here. She was most likely the person sent by the Celestial Court to investigate the Demon Emperor. However, they hadn't contacted each other before this, so how did she find him? Tian Lingling finally came to her senses upon hearing Lin's words, and an awkward expression appeared on her face. Right at this moment, a white-robed male flew down from the sky. Because this is fate. It's fate that brought us together. The male jumped down from his flying sword and spoke with a nonchalant expression. Madagascar glared at the male. Fate my **s. This is because Lin's mission badge resonated with our badges, so we were able to find each other by following their auras. Lin nodded with a look of realization. The man, however, was unconvinced. But isn't this fate? There's a connection in the unseen world, and through various events, we've been able to meet. Madagascar. She felt like arguing with this male would never lead to anything, so she ignored him. After Madagascar's introduction, Lin found out that the male was called Earth Immortal Ming Yuan. He was also a teacher at their school, and he formed a partnership with Madagascar to deal with the Demon Emperor incident together. Then, Earth Immortal Yu Ying took out another document. Within it was a request for the members of the team to assist Earth Immortal Yu Ying in completing this mission. This mission is very challenging, aren't you surprised? Madagascar held up the document with a smile. Lin nodded with a dark expression. I'm very surprised. No surprise, but it was full of shock. The Demon Emperor was an enemy with the strength of a soul formation stage cultivator. Why would they, who were of the 10th stage Tao body, go? They might even be killed by the shockwaves from the battle. Had the school gone crazy, or had the Celestial Court gone crazy? Although he was very reluctant, he still called Xianyuan Qing and Su Xiaolan to inform them of this news. They had to rush over from other places, so they decided to continue on to Tibet the next day. After informing Xianyuan Qing and the others, Lin arranged for Madagascar and Earth Immortal Ming Yuan to stay in a hotel and told them everything he knew. What confused Lin was that they didn't plan to work together with the soul formation stage cultivators of the human world. Instead, they chose to act independently. Furthermore, the destination of this mission was the ancient Jade Pond in Tibet. Teacher, do you think the Demon Emperor and the others are really hiding near the ancient Jade Pond? Lin asked. After the coordinates of the demonic realm were exposed, human cultivators banded together to break into the demonic realm. However, in the demonic realm, they only discovered a few weak demonic cultivators, and the Demon Emperor and the others were nowhere to be seen. Ever since the strange phenomenon occurred in the ancient Jade Pond, many human cultivators had linked it to the demonic realm and formed teams to search for it, but they still didn't make any major discoveries. You'll know when you get there. There'll be a surprise. Madagascar had an enigmatic expression, which gave Lin a fright. Surprise? A sense of unease welled up in Lin's heart as he thought back to the pleasant surprises she had mentioned. However, in the end, Madagascar didn't reveal any clear information. Instead, she went straight back to her room to sleep. And Lin could only shake his head helplessly. Right at this moment, Earth Immortal Ming Yuan patted Lin's shoulder with an understanding expression. Student Lin, do you also feel that Teacher Yuing is very boring by always keeping us in suspense? Lin nodded emphatically upon hearing this, as if he had found a soulmate. Earth Immortal Ming Yuan laughed heartily. Take me for example, I never beat around the bush. Lin's eyes lit up. Teacher, are you going to explain to me about the ancient jade pond? Earth Immortal Ming Yuan shook his head. I just read your fortune for you, student Lin. I never keep you in suspense, so I'll get straight to the point. This mission is a very inauspicious omen for you. Lin. Chapter 89. Earth Immortal Ming Yuan was a teacher of divination, and his divination skills were much better than crack-shot clairvoyance. Because of this, Lin was dumbfounded upon hearing this. After a long while, he asked with a bitter expression, Teacher, can I back out? Earth Immortal Ming Yuan smiled faintly. Sometimes the more you want to avoid something, the more you can avoid it. Perhaps it's because of your avoidance that the line of karma in the unseen world was successfully constructed. Teacher Ming Yuan, say something that I can understand. Lin's lips twitched as he spoke. Yes, you can't back out. I can't do anything about this, Earth Immortal Ming Yuan replied concisely. Lin. Earth Immortal Ming Yuan patted Lin's shoulder with an encouraging expression. As the saying goes, fortune and misfortune come hand in hand. Many times, risk represents opportunity. With this experience, perhaps you will grow even more. Thank you for your guidance, teacher. Sure enough, Lin's mood improved slightly upon hearing this, and he spoke with a grateful expression. Earth Immortal Ming Yuan nodded with a smile. In fact, he had a very deep impression of his student Lin. Their courageous struggle against fate was still fresh in his mind, and it gave him a deeper understanding of the workings of fate. Thus, he admired this young man who could always surprise people. Perhaps this young man would reap even greater rewards from this trip, following the return of Su Xiaolan and Xianyuan Qing the next day. Lin, Madagascar, Earth Immortal Ming Yuan, Su Xiaolan, and Xianyuan Qing set off toward the ancient Jade Pond in Tibet. This was an independent mission from the Celestial Court, so Tian Lingling and Dongfang Shui didn't follow them. Lin took a photo of Lin Yi that Tian Lingling had given him and promised that if he encountered Lin Yi and Lin Yi was also in danger, he would find a way to help her escape. Next, Lin and Su Xiaolan both jumped onto Madagascar's book and flew to Tibet. Xianyuan Qing and Earth-level deity Ming Yuan followed closely behind. The average altitude of Tibet was more than 4,000 meters, and it was known as the roof of the world. As for their destination, the ancient Jade Pool, it was located in a mountain range that was more than 6,000 meters above sea level. After an hour of flying, Lin and the others saw the endless snowy mountains. As they flew higher and higher, the color of the sky became clearer and more transparent. There were few plants and animals on the ground, only gravel and glaciers. Our destination is right ahead, Madagascar said as he slowly descended the book. Lin looked ahead and saw a pool of water. He finally understood why this pool of water was called the Ancient Jade Pool. From afar, it really looked like a piece of green ancient jade. It was smooth and transparent like a jade sea with blue waves. Even though the surrounding environment was extremely cold, the pool of water appeared warm and gentle, making one feel happy. If it wasn't for the rugged terrain and inconvenient transportation, perhaps this place would have become a famous scenic spot. There were also several human cultivators around the ancient jade pool. They were cultivators who had come to investigate the ancient jade pool. When they saw Madagascar and the others flying over from the sky, there was a look of respect on their faces. Cultivators above the spirit-nurturing stage were already the most powerful group of cultivators on Earth. They had come here to investigate, so the other cultivators naturally didn't dare to rashly disturb them. There are remnants of the domain auras of other soul formation stage cultivators here. It looks like they've already been here once, but it's obvious that they didn't find much. Madagascar flipped to a certain page in the ancient book and smiled with narrowed eyes. The domain she was talking about was a personal domain created by soul formation stage cultivators by combining their own insight. It was one of the symbols of soul formation stage cultivators. And Lin glanced at Madagascar, who was brimming with confidence. He knew that it was time for her to show off her skills. Sure enough, Madagascar continued. If you don't know some of the secrets of this place, you won't be able to discover its secrets. Heavenly light and water shadows, the fusion of illusion and reality, all of you, come over and stand with me. Madagascar beckoned to Enlin and the others. Enlin and the others didn't know what was going on. Even Earth Immortal Ming Yuan was confused. However, they still obeyed and stood beside Madagascar. Then, Madagascar took out his phone and used an immortal spell to make it float in the air. Come, 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 such a beautiful scene, everyone, look at the camera and smile. Enlin. Su Xiaolan. Earth Immortal Ming Yuan. Kacha! The phone captured the smiling Madagascar, as well as the four people with cold expressions on their faces. Behind them was the beautiful ancient jade pond and the snowy mountains. Yuing, look, we've already taken a group photo. It's time to enter the ancient jade mystic realm, right? Earth Immortal Ming Yuan asked in exasperation. Madagascar was the only one among them who knew how to enter the ancient jade mystic realm. She was the only one who could lead everyone into the mystic realm. Enlin and the others couldn't help but become more alert when they heard that there really was a mystic realm here. However, Madagascar shook her head. It's not time to enter yet. We have to wait until the moon rises before we can open the passageway. Before that, let me brief you on your mission and the specifics. Then, Madagascar smiled at Enlin and the others. Do you know why I called all of you to come to this mystic realm? Enlin and the others shook their heads in bewilderment upon hearing this. They were going to fight the demon emperor? Of course not. The celestial court wouldn't let Enlin and the others take unnecessary risk. Madagascar. That's because the ancient jade mystic realm has already been split into 4 mystic realms. The white bone realm can only be entered by cultivators of the Tao body stage. The spirit origin realm can only be entered by cultivators of the spirit nurturing stage. The soul separation realm can only be entered by cultivators of the soul formation stage, and the consolidation realm. Xianyuan Cheng, I see. We have cultivators of the Tao body stage, spirit nurturing stage, and soul formation stage. Are we going to carry out missions in different mystic realms? Madagascar nodded. That's right. This ancient jade mystic realm is a place that Emperor Ziwei of the Celestial Court used to purify the evil-slaying sword of the Dark-Wing tribe. The mystic realm itself is a purification spell formation. This spell formation is known as the 3 Extremes Spirit Destruction Spell Formation. It can draw upon the power of the earth and split it into 3 streams of energy. These 3 streams of energy will cleanse the evil-slaying sword's sword spirit and allow the evil-slaying sword to give birth to a new sword spirit. However, this spell formation has a flaw. When the energy of the evil-slaying sword's sword spirit is stripped away, its energy will seep into the 3 realms of the spell formation and spawn monsters of different cultivation realms. These monsters are like plugs in the spell formation. They will block the circulation of the spell formation. Our mission is to enter the 3 realms and kill all of these monsters to clear the spell formation. Enlin suddenly felt very tired after hearing Madagascar's words. This was like some F***king cultivator playing with a weapon and asking them to do odd jobs for him. However, doing odd jobs was a bit difficult. Emperor Ziwei was a true god, The Dark Wing tribe was an extremely mysterious and powerful tribe on the Tai Chu continent, and the evil-slaying sword was an extremely powerful immortal tool. Oh, that's right, the Demon Emperor and the Blood God are also in the mystic realm. Their goal is most likely to break the spell formation and retrieve the evil-slaying sword while it's weakened. They used a magic treasure of the Dark Wing tribe to forcefully open up a passageway into the mystic realm. Only soul formation stage cultivators can force their way into the mystic realm. Therefore, enemies are only active in the soul separation realm and consolidation realm. You don't have to worry about them at all. Earth Immortal Ming Yuan and I will kill all of these enemies, Madagascar added. Kill all of them? And Lin's heart was once again filled with exhaustion upon hearing this. Why are you asking? It's because of my blood, it's all for nothing. The Demon Emperor and the Blood God have all been killed. There's nothing left for the human cultivator to do. His promise to give me his storage ring was also for naught. Sigh, life really is full of surprises. After that, Madagascar explained a few more things that they needed to pay attention to in the mystic realm. Night fell, and the bright moon shone on the surface of the lake. The ancient jade pond glowed with white moonlight, and it seemed to contain the stars in the sky. The 5 of them stood above the ancient jade pond, on high alert. Madagascar pulled out a badge, and a beam of light shot into Enlin and the others' bodies. Lord of the Stars, Master of all creations, Ziwei Royal Technique, Moon Reflection, Break. Following his command, Enlin and the others' bodies slowly faded into nothingness, and they finally disappeared from this world. Chapter 90. The sky in the white bone realm of the ancient jade mystic realm was a murky gray. The light from the mystic realm was dim and gloomy, just like the hue of this area. A beam of light flashed past, and Enlin and Su Xiaolan descended into the white bone realm. Enlin looked around at the white bones around him with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Most of these white bones belonged to humans, but there were also some that belonged to unknown ferocious beasts. Skeletal remains littered the ground, creating a spectacular sight to behold. This place is deathly still. There aren't any living beings around. Enlin looked around in confusion. The ground was black, the bones were white, and the air around them was deathly still. There were no living beings around. Let's not get careless. Teacher Ewing said that the spell formation hasn't been cleaned up for a long time, so there should be quite a few monsters gathered here. Su Xiaolan had already drawn her longsword as she spoke with a cautious expression. Enlin nodded and walked forward with a cautious expression. The white bone realm wasn't actually very big. It only had a radius of about 2 kilometers. As the 2 of them walked into the white bone realm, the surrounding environment seemed to be changing. Wisps of black mist rose up from the ground, and this made Enlin and Su Xiaolan very wary. Suddenly, a humanoid skeleton walked out from the black mist in front of Enlin. The skeleton walked toward Enlin with seductive step. It placed its left hand on its hip and tilted its head to one side as it asked in a coy voice, "Customer, am I beautiful?" Enlin, Su Xiaolan. The skeleton looked at its own body in confusion when it saw the strange expressions on the faces of the 2 people in front of it. Then, it silently turned around and walked back into the black mist. 3 seconds later, a beautiful woman in revealing clothes with an extremely sexy figure walked out from the black mist. She caressed her chest teasingly, stuck out her tongue, licked her bright red lips, and said in a sweet voice, "Dear customer, am I beautiful?" Enlin, Su Xiaolan. If the one who came out first was not the skeleton, but this beauty, the 2 of them might have a better reaction. Right now, Enlin didn't say anything and directly threw out a mountain-quaking fist. Rumble! When the huge golden fist hit the sexy beauty, she was directly beaten back to her skeleton form, and even her bones were shattered by the terrifying fist energy. The black mist in front of Enlin also began to dissipate as the skeleton was destroyed. I probably have to clear out all the skeleton soldiers in the black fog before I can open up the passageway to this secret plane. After the black fog dissipated, Lin had a look of understanding on his face. Su Xiaolan also nodded her head in agreement. However, her eyebrows were slightly knitted together as she said, "But at a glance, there are at least 100 strands of black mist in the white bone realm. If I were to fight them one by one, not only would it take a long time, but it would also consume a lot of energy." Hearing this, Lin thought for a moment before his eyes lit up. "Let's go do an experiment first." After saying this, he ran in front of another strand of black mist. Sure enough, another sexy beauty walked out from the black mist and continuously flirted with him. Lin immediately turned around and ran away after seeing this beauty. "Ah, customer, don't go!" The beauty panicked and chased after him with a sharp, cold light flashing on her fingertip. "Xiaolan, I'm going to circle around this white bone realm and pull all the monsters here. Stay here and prepare an immortal spell of mass destruction." Lin yelled at Su Xiaolan as he ran toward another plume of black mist while being chased by the beautiful woman. This is a good idea. It saves time and energy." Su Xiaolan's eyes lit up and she immediately began to prepare an offensive flame formation. Every time Lin approached a strand of black mist, a beauty would run out and chase after him. These beauties were actually very similar in appearance. When he looked behind him, it was as if he could see a group of Korean beauties chasing after him. They were all chanting the same line, "Ah, customer, don't go." Of course, there were also some skeletons who had failed to transform among the army of beauties. These skeletons also yelled in a flirtatious voice, "Ah, customer, don't go." Goosebumps appeared all over Lin's body upon seeing this. F***ck, didn't these brainless skeletons look at themselves in the mirror before trying to seduce someone? The lap around the white bone realm was almost over. An army of a few hundred beauties had already gathered behind Lin. As they trod on the bone-filled ground, cracking sounds rang out. It was as if a torrential downpour was crashing onto the ground, creating an astonishing scene. That extremely tempting sentence of, "Aya, customer, don't go," was said. Because there were so many people shouting, the scene became even more imposing. The allure was completely gone, and it was already starting to become a little frightening. Elsewhere, Su Xiaolan had already finished setting up an offensive flame formation. She had even used her sword to draw a circular line on the ground to show the range of the formation. Lin turned around and heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that none of the beauties had fallen behind. However, he was also a little disappointed. Actually, the feeling of being chased by a large group of beauties was very strange, because this was the first time he had been chased by so many beauties. Although he knew that they were all fake, he still felt a little good. When this army of beauties had all stepped into the spell formation, Lin immediately sped up and rushed out of the spell formation. Then, he turned around and glanced at the army of beauties that were still chasing after him. At this moment, a golden light flashed through his eyes, and a supreme aura spread out in all directions along with a ripple. Over half of the beauties instantly lost their footing and fell to the ground. Even some of the beauties with powerful auras faltered. At the same time, Su Xiaolan made a hand seal, and the ground of the offensive flame formation suddenly became scorching hot. In the blink of an eye, a pillar of flames shot up into the sky from the scorching hot ground. Boom! The scorching flames enveloped the hundreds of beauties in the spell formation. Inside the flame formation, the beauties revealed their true faces. One by one, the skeletons in the spell formation screamed mournfully and eventually fell to the ground. The flames in the spell formation gradually dissipated, and the army of beauties had turned back into skeletons scattered on the ground, emitting black smoke. At the same time, the black smoke in all parts of the white bone realm began to dissipate. Done! Su Xiaolan came to Lin's side, her beautiful and flawless face a little pale. Obviously, that spell formation had consumed a lot of her energy. Now that the monsters have been cleared, the gate to the consolidation realm should appear, Lin said as he looked around. Madagascar had once said that as long as all the monsters in the White Bone Realm were cleared, the passage to the Consolidation Realm would appear. That passage was a one-way passage, and it could only be entered from the White Bone Realm to the Consolidation Realm. Anlin and Su Xiaolan only needed to wait at the entrance of the passage. Once Madagascar had eliminated all the enemies in the Consolidation Realm, he would inform them to enter with a spirit talisman. Suddenly, the ground began to shake, and a white gate began to appear in the White Bone Realm. Behind the gate was a pure white light, and it was impossible to see what was inside. This should be the entrance to the two secret realms. Let's go, we'll wait at the entrance of the passage, Anlin said. Clack, clack, suddenly, the crisp sound of footsteps came from inside the gate. Be careful, something is coming through the gate. Su Xiaolan looked at the gate with a solemn expression. Anlin was also shocked, and all the muscles in his body began to tense up. Wasn't this passage one way? Why was there something coming through? Chapter 91. In the Spirit Origin Realm, a green stream of water filled the entire space. Giant pythons slithered through the water and stared coldly at the man in white who was slowly walking toward them. The entire space was filled with a green mist. The mist contained a deadly poison that could kill without leaving a trace. Xian Yuanqing held a longsword in his hand. All the giant pythons that pounced toward him were diced by his sword. Not a single one was spared. A circular white chi shield protected his body. It grew and multiplied endlessly, isolating all the poisonous aura. The source of the poisonous mist is nearby. He looked up and saw a giant figure slowly appear. It was 30 meters tall and had an extremely powerful aura. 9 ferocious-looking snake heads grew on its enormous body. They flicked their tongues and stared coldly at Xian Yuanqing. An astonishing aura erupted from Xian Yuanqing's entire body. One man and one sword stepped into the sky and fearlessly pounced toward the 9-headed monster. In the soul-severing realm, there was a green grassland. The air here was fresh and the vital energy was rich. A gentle breeze blew past, making people feel relaxed and happy. As soon as Madagascar and Earth Immortal Ming Yuan entered, they saw the abrupt figure on the grassland. The corpse of a giant black dragon lay on the grassland. The corpse was more than 30 meters long and was shriveled on the ground. Its back was covered with hideous sword wounds. Even though it was already dead, it still exuded a shocking aura. This black dragon's blood essence has been completely sucked dry. It's clearly the work of the blood race. Madagascar looked at the dragon's body. Golden runes emerged from the pages of the book and merged into the corpse. Through the analysis of the runes, she felt the remaining power in the dragon's body. After that, she had a general understanding of the enemy's power. A total of 3 enemies attacked this dragon. 2 of them were blood gods with strength around the middle stage of the soul formation realm. The other enemy should be the demon emperor that Anlin and the others mentioned. However, his power is a little strange. It doesn't seem like he's transformed by the flesh-filling tombstone. Earth Immortal Ming Yuan smiled faintly. Whether the demon emperor is planning to transform into a blood race or not, we just need to kill him. Let's hurry. We can't let them continue to break the formation in the Unity Realm. Madagascar nodded. She and Earth Immortal Ming Yuan were both late-stage soul formation realm cultivators. They had no problem dealing with the 3 enemies. Then, the 2 walked toward the door of light that led to the Unity Realm inside the White Bone Realm. The door of light slowly began to dim. It was not because the light had weakened, but because there was a darkness that was slowly devouring the light. In the end, the tunnel became pitch black. Thump, thump! A sound that sounded like a heartbeat came from behind the door. The sound grew louder and louder, as if it was about to tear this final barrier apart. Xiaolan, do you have any way to escape from this mystic realm? Anlin's flesh crawled upon hearing this voice, and his heart rate also began to accelerate. Su Xiaolan shook her head as cold sweat dripped from her forehead. She was also staring at the inky black gate with horror in her eyes. A terrifying force slowly seeped into the white bone realm from outside the door, making it difficult for people to even breathe. According to the normal script, Madagascar and Earth Immortal Ming Yuan should have eliminated all the enemies in the Unity Realm. Then, they would send a signal for Enlin and the others to enter the Unity Realm. However, the situation was clearly not right. Crack, like glass shattering, cracks appeared on the door and spread like a spider web. A pair of crystal white hands suddenly pierced through the door. Then, the hands turned into claws and tore outwards. Boom! The entire space trembled. The door was torn apart just like that. Terrifying spatial turbulence formed a hurricane that howled in all directions. Anything that was touched by the turbulence was reduced to dust and disappeared from the world. Enlin and Su Xiaolan retreated to avoid the violent turbulence. A woman in black passed through the broken door. Her snow-white feet stepped onto the bone-covered ground. As soon as she appeared, the spatial turbulence around her began to subside. Even the door began to close. This woman was beautiful. Her long hair fluttered behind her like ribbons. She also had a pair of black wings folded behind her back. Black wing? Enlin's pupils contracted upon seeing this. Could it be that this woman was from the Dark Wing tribe? The woman in black also noticed Enlin and the others. Their eyes met. Her pitch-black eyes seemed to be sucking in Enlin's mind. With just one look, Enlin and Su Xiaolan felt a great fear. They were so weak that they began to lose their balance. Too powerful. Enlin felt as if he was facing an endless abyss. He could not muster up any resistance. The woman in black did not pay attention to the two in front of her. She continued to look around as if she was sweeping away a speck of dust. A blood-colored nail floated beside her, emitting a strange red glow. Wrong. Realm-piercing nail, continue. As the cold voice sounded, the blood-colored nail began to tremble. Then, it pierced into the void. Boom! The void began to crack, and a pitch-black hole appeared once again. The entire land of white bones began to tremble involuntarily. This was no longer as simple as tearing open space. It was clear that this spell formation had also suffered a violent impact. The woman in black turned around and walked into the pitch-black passageway without looking back. The passageway began to shrink as the woman stepped into it. In the end, everything returned to silence. She left just like that? Enlin was in disbelief. He stared blankly at the passageway that had already disappeared. A bitter smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. Perhaps in her eyes were just harmless ants. Enlin came to a realization and said urgently, "The Dark Wing tribe is here, and they are terrifyingly powerful. Their target is most likely the evil-slaying sword. We must pass this information to Teacher Yu Ying as soon as possible." "But how are we supposed to do that?" "Only Teacher Yu Ying can activate this message talisman. Also, this message talisman can only be activated by Teacher Yu Ying. Once the message talisman burns, it means that we can enter the consolidation stage." But now Su Xiaolan held the yellow message talisman, a helpless expression on her face. Enlin was startled when he heard this. Then, he let out a sigh. He took out his phone and found that the signal was 0. He could not help but shake his head again. This time, he really was at his wits' end. I also discovered another problem. Enlin pointed at the empty white bone realm around him. The gate to the consolidation stage seems to have been destroyed by that woman. Teacher Yu Ying's cultivation base is limited, so does that mean we can only stay in this white bone realm forever? Su Xiaolan blinked her beautiful eyes, also realizing the severity of the problem. However, she could not think of any solution in the end. She could only sit on the ground dejectedly, her face full of worry. In the spirit origin realm, the last head of the 9-headed monster was severed by a pure white sword projection. Its gigantic body began to collapse to the ground. Xian Yuan Qing flicked his sword, and the blood on his sword fell off. There was some exhaustion on his face, but fortunately, he was not injured. The surrounding poisonous miasma slowly dissipated with the collapse of the nine-headed monster, and a pure white gate began to appear. Now I just need to wait for the message talisman to burn, then I can enter. Xianyuan Cheng looked at the talisman treasure in his hand and muttered to himself. After a while, the talisman treasure in his hand suddenly emitted a bright light. What does the talisman treasure emitting light mean? I didn't mention it before. Xianyuan Cheng looked at the talisman treasure in his hand, a confused expression on his face. Could it be that Teacher Yuing sent the wrong message? She actually wanted the message talisman to burn? Xianyuan Cheng stared at the gate glowing with a pure white light and began to hesitate. To enter or not to enter? Chapter 92. Anlin and Su Xiaolan's message talismans also began to glow, but they could only stare blankly at the message talismans, unable to do anything. Just as the two of them were speechless, a white light suddenly shone from their bodies. A hint of joy appeared in Anlin's eyes. He recalled the scene when they were about to enter the mystic realm. In other words, this white light could directly teleport them out of the mystic realm. Sure enough, their bodies began to turn incorporeal and eventually disappeared from the white bone realm. Anlin and Su Xiaolan only felt the space around them shake, and then they returned to the edge of the ancient jade pool. As soon as they returned to the ancient jade pool, their expressions changed drastically. Because the surroundings of the ancient jade pool had become an Azura battlefield. The chi of heaven and earth surged, and the sounds of immortal techniques colliding rang out continuously. The Blood Tribe army and the human cultivators clashed, and battle cries filled the entire battlefield. In the distance, a pool of blood covered the ground. A golden-haired, red-eyed man stood at the center of the blood pool and slapped away the white lightning with his palm before summoning a 100-meter-long blood dragon. It gave off a shocking aura as it rushed towards the Taoist in the air. That's the Longhu sect master, Celestial Master Zhang. Anlin exclaimed when he saw the old Taoist in the sky. The golden-haired man on the ground was emitting a powerful aura. He was most likely a blood god. In the sky above, a handsome man with black wings was guarding the side of a pitch-black hole. The sect master of Wudong sect, Taoist priest Xiun, the sect master of the Kunlun immortal sect, Spirit Child Shi, and the sect master of the Shangqing immortal sect, Taoist Yumu. These three soul formation stage cultivators joined forces to attack him, but they were still unable to subdue him. On the ground, hundreds of human cultivators were locked in battle with the Blood Tribe army. The vampires had mobilized many of their members, and their overall numbers and combat strength were higher than that of the human cultivators. However, the blades of the human cultivators were smeared with a type of poisonous blood. Once a vampire combatant was injured by this blood-stained weapon, he would immediately die from the poison. Even the Blood King couldn't avoid this fate. Due to the help of the poisonous blood, the human cultivators seemed to have the upper hand in the battle. Anlin, I didn't expect your blood to be so useful. Su Xiaolan's face was full of shock as she looked at the countless Blood Tribe experts who had fallen to the ground and were foaming at the mouth. She had previously heard Anlin mention that his blood could poison a Blood King to death. Originally, she did not believe it, but now that this shocking scene was placed in front of her, she was deeply shocked. Beside the ancient jade pool, another burst of white light flashed. Xianyuan Cheng stood at the edge of the pool with a puzzled expression, wondering why he had been teleported out before he had even reached the consolidation realm. Madagascar and Earth Immortal Ming Yuan also appeared beside the ancient jade pond. All of them were heavily injured and looked to be in a sorry state. Run. Go back to Baiyun Taoist Temple and send a message to the Celestial Court. Tell them that the Dark Night is coming. Madagascar's voice suddenly appeared in the minds of Anlin, Su Xiaolan, and Xianyuan Cheng. It was like a clap of thunder, causing them to shiver all over. Xianyuan Cheng reacted extremely quickly. Without saying anything, He flew up on his sword and flew in Lin's direction. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the sky. Immediately afterward, a woman flapping her wings walked out of the crack and appeared in this world. She held a pitch-black longsword in her hand, and her aura was vast and profound. Behind him, two blood gods with golden hair and red eyes stood respectfully with their heads slightly lowered. This woman's identity was extremely precious. She was one of the 12 true monarchs of the Dark Wing tribe, an ally of the Blood tribe. She was the Return to Void stage master, the Dark Knight. The sword spirit has been completely converted and has successfully broken free from the restraints of the Grade 3 formation. Demon Emperor, as the new sword spirit, I will not mistreat you. Now, I will let you drink the blood of cultivators to your heart's content. The Dark Knight looked at Madagascar and Earth, Immortal Ming Yuan, who were on the ground. They had activated the defensive formation, but it was already full of cracks. She then turned to look at Xianyuan Qing, who was flying on his sword, and curled her lips slightly. The cultivators who have been tainted by the aura of the mystic realm must have been sent by the celestial court. It's better to kill them. The Dark Knight flicked her finger, and a black aura containing a terrifying power flew toward Xianyuan Qing. Madagascar was shocked. She initially thought that the Dark Knight would not care about the lives of a few insignificant cultivators with Earth Immortal Ming Yuan here. To her surprise, the Dark Knight was able to sense that the aura of Xianyuan Qing was different from that of the other cultivators. Enlin, Su Xiaolan, get up here. Xianyuan Qing had already flown to Enlin's side on his sword and yelled. He didn't notice that the deadly black energy behind him was flying towards him at high speed. Be careful! Enlin roared and rushed over, pushing Xianyuan Qing aside while holding the black brick in front of him. Boom! The black aura collided with the brick and exploded with a loud boom. The terrifying destructive energy crashed into the brick, but it was unable to break through it. In fact, it was unable to even leave a mark on its surface. Even though the black brick had blocked this lethal attack, Enlin's internal organs were still jolted by the immense force, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The black brick in his hand was the chaotic alloy brick that he had won from the lottery. The world's toughest brick. As expected of its reputation, the Dark Knight was slightly taken aback when she saw the black aura being blocked by a cultivator of the 10th stage Tao body. How interesting! However, let's see how you're going to block this attack. A faint smile appeared on her face as her evil-slaying sword hovered in the air. She pointed the tip of the sword at Enlin and flicked her finger. How powerful would an immortal tool be when used by a supreme being of the Return to Void stage? Even a flick of her finger would possess the power to slay a cultivator of the Soul Formation stage. The evil-slaying sword slashed out a lethal trajectory, and a dazzling black glow became the only color between heaven and earth. The space around it also became extremely viscous under the might of the sword. It was as if Xianyuan Qing and Su Xiaolan's bodies had been frozen, and they could only watch on blankly. Enlin stared at the evil-slaying sword flying toward him, and an aura of death enveloped his entire body. His mind became completely blank. This was an irresistible power, a power that struck despair into one's heart. However, right at this moment, a figure appeared before him. She spread open her arms, and her long, curly hair fluttered in the wind. This resolute yet fragile figure replaced the black color of death, and it became the only image in Enlin's eyes. A gigantic ancient book hovered in front of the woman, and a dazzling golden glow erupted from it. Countless golden symbols proliferated into the surroundings, forming a domain that clashed with the evil-slaying sword. The black blade of the evil-slaying sword entered the domain of symbols and stabbed into the ancient book before coming to a halt. However, an even more astonishing black glow then erupted from the evil-slaying sword, and it abruptly pierced through the ancient book. In the end, the inky black longsword continued onward, and it pierced through the body of the woman standing in front of Enlin. The woman's body was pierced through, but her hands gripped tightly onto the sharp blade of the sword. A series of golden symbols enshrouded the blade of the sword, and the frozen space around it instantly returned to normal. "Run!" the woman yelled as blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. "Teacher! Why did you have to do this?" Tears welled up in Enlin's eyes as he stared at the resolute figure standing in front of him. He was only a cultivator of the 10th stage Tao body. Why would a soul formation final stage cultivator risk her life to save them? It wasn't worth it. Madagascar's beautiful features had already become deathly pale, but she still squeezed out a smile toward Enlin. "You're already calling me teacher. Do you still need to ask why? Isn't the reason obvious? I'm your teacher." Chapter 93. Hearing Madagascar's reply, Enlin's body trembled, and he stared at the figure in front of him in a daze. The evil-slaying sword once again erupted with a monstrous aura, and the blade began to tremble as it attempted to break free from Madagascar's grip. Madagascar moaned in pain, and her slender body trembled uncontrollably from the agitation of her wounds. However, her hands gripped the blade even tighter, and blood flowed from her hands. Golden symbols burst forth from her hands, suppressing the black longsword. "What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and run!" Madagascar yelled again. In the distance, Earth Immortal Ming Yuan charged toward the Dark Knight monarch of the Dark Wing tribe, trying to buy time for Enlin and the others to escape. However, he was blocked by the two blood gods behind the Dark Knight monarch. Xianyuan Qing flew over to Enlin's side again. "Enlin, hurry up and get up here. Let's run." However, Enlin shook his head at Xianyuan Qing. "We won't be able to escape. What do you think are the chances of a spirit-nurturing stage cultivator escaping from a return-to-void stage cultivator? I don't care how small the chances are you going to let Teacher Yu Ying's efforts down?" Seeing Enlin's expression, Xianyuan Qing, who had always been mild-mannered, rebuked him angrily for the first time. Enlin shook his head again. "It's not like that. If we choose to escape, it's very likely that we'll all die here. However, I still have a second choice." Hearing Enlin's words, Xianyuan Qing stared at him in confusion. Soon, he seemed to have thought of something, and his expression shifted. "Could it be that you're going to use that technique?" "That's right. If I use that technique, perhaps everyone will have a chance to survive. Teacher Yu Ying is willing to sacrifice herself for us, so why should I be stingy with my own life?" For some reason, when Enlin said this, he felt as if his entire body had lightened, as if there were no more burdens on his shoulders. There was no school's soul-sealing ice coffin, and there was no Chong Yi's second-grade immortal pill. This time, perhaps he would really die. Enlin glanced at Su Xiaolan and Xianyuan Qing with a hint of longing in his eyes. Then, he turned to look at Earth Immortal Ming Yuan, who was battling the two blood gods in the distance. Finally, his gaze stopped at the figure that was about to fall. Enlin took a deep breath and walked in front of Madagascar. "Enlin, are you crazy?" Madagascar gritted her teeth. Seeing that Enlin didn't run away and stood in front of her instead, she couldn't help but feel angry. His body, which was already struggling to support itself, began to sway. Even the Dark Knight monarch was slightly taken aback. She clearly didn't expect this little cultivator of the 10th stage Tao body to do something like this. "Thank you, Teacher Yu Ying." Enlin felt that this might be the last thing he would say in this life. After that, he looked at the black-robed woman standing in the void in the distance and extended a finger. Finger of the heavenly Tao. In that instant, the Dark Knight monarch's expression suddenly shifted drastically. As if she had seen an extremely terrifying technique, she retreated in retreat and instantly constructed over 100 black crystal walls in front of her. At the same time, a golden formation disc instantly appeared in her hand. 3 seconds later, Enlin's finger didn't change in the slightest. Beads of cold sweat appeared on the Dark Knight monarch's forehead as she looked at the cultivator's finger with extreme caution. Why hasn't he unleashed his technique yet? Beads of cold sweat also appeared on Enlin's forehead. He had clearly unleashed the finger of the heavenly Tao just like last time, so why wasn't there any reaction? 1 minute later, Lin's hand remained in the same position. His shoulder began to ache a little, but he didn't dare to do anything else. The Dark Knight Monarch had expended a lot of energy to maintain her defensive spell technique, but she didn't dare to relax in the slightest. Her intuition toward death was extremely accurate. Just then, she had indeed sensed an extremely terrifying power. It was a power that could lead her to death. Although the power of that finger had already disappeared. However, the Dark Knight Monarch knew that this cultivator was definitely waiting for her to lower her guard before attacking. She wasn't going to be fooled. Pfff. Madagascar threw up a mouthful of blood, and her body finally collapsed to the ground. Teacher! Lin turned to look at Madagascar, and he instantly panicked when he realized that she was about to die. The Dark Knight Monarch took advantage of the instant that Lin turned his head to look at her, and she waved a pristine white palm toward him. The power of her palm pierced through space and instantly landed on his body. Lin felt an indescribable force, and he felt as if his body was about to be completely torn apart by this palm. Like a cannonball, his body was sent flying for several hundred meters before crashing into a tall mountain, which caved in and cracked open. If it weren't for the fact that Lin had cultivated the Earth Lotus Supreme skill, which granted him an extremely powerful physical body, that palm would have taken his life. However, even if he hadn't been killed by that palm, his current condition wasn't any better. He threw up a mouthful of blood mixed with fragments of his internal organs. His body trembled uncontrollably, and he couldn't even move a single finger. Am I going to die? A bitter smile appeared on Lin's face as he looked at Xianyuan Cheng and the others in the distance, his heart filled with indignation. Didn't this mean that no one would be able to save him? Why did this happen when he had made up his mind to sacrifice himself? The Dark Knight Monarch was also a little surprised to see Lin severely injured with a single palm. She had always thought that this unassuming little cultivator was a mighty figure who was concealing his strength. But now it looked like she had been overthinking. Aside from the fact that this cultivator's physical body was a little powerful, there was nothing special about him. At most, he would add a little more. He also had a special skill to scare people. Even so, the Dark Knight Monarch still wouldn't underestimate Lin, and she didn't hold back this time. Eternal night. The Dark Knight Monarch's cold voice sounded from her lip. Instantly, the sky began to darken, obscuring the starlight and even the glow of the moon. The cultivators on the ground widened their eyes when they saw the scene that caused the sky to darken. A few soul formation stage mighty figures noticed the woman in black standing silently in the air, and their pupils contracted as their hearts sank. Sword, come! The Dark Knight Monarch gripped the air. Instantly, thick darkness surged violently, condensing into a black longsword several thousand feet in length. The longsword pierced through the air, exuding a terrifying aura that forced all the Blood Tribe warriors and human cultivators on the ground to kneel, as if they were submitting to their monarch. Lin grimaced at the sight of this terrifyingly powerful sword technique. King need to use this technique against a cultivator of the 10th stage Dao body? It's like using a nuclear bomb to kill an ant. What a waste. However, Lin was unable to resist. He couldn't even move. The only thing he could do was curse in his heart. Ding dong! Detected that host is facing a grave threat. Do you agree to sacrifice 1/5 of your life? You will obtain unimaginable power. Lin's heart trembled. Sacrifice 1/5 of his life? Obtain unimaginable power? What a joke. He was willing to sacrifice his life in order to save Xianyuan Cheng and the others. I agree. Just as he finished speaking, the black longsword several thousand feet in length slashed down with the power to annihilate everything. The entire snow mountain was instantly engulfed by boundless darkness, crumbled, and finally returned to nothingness. Chapter 94. A black sword projection swept through heaven and earth, engulfing the massive snow mountain and enveloping Lin's body. However, this power was unable to harm him in the slightest. A black mark appeared on his forehead like a sharp sword. Enlin stepped forward, and his body traveled over a kilometer to arrive beside Madagascar. Enlin? Su Xiaolan's eyes were red, and she let out a cry of surprise upon seeing that Enlin wasn't dead. She pounced over and hugged him tightly. Enlin could feel the soft and warm body in his arms, which was still trembling slightly, as if she were sobbing. He patted Su Xiaolan's back and spoke in a gentle voice, "I'm sorry for making you worry." He gently pushed Su Xiaolan away as he spoke. "Wait a moment, I have some other things to do first." Xian Yuanqing heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing Enlin's safe return. "Teacher," Enlin half knelt beside Madagascar as he spoke in a soft voice. Madagascar's head was slightly lowered, and his lips moved slightly, but he didn't even have the strength to utter a single word. This once beautiful woman was extremely frail and haggard. Not only was her skin wrinkled and her hair white, but her aura was also extremely feeble. The evil-slaying sword emitted a peculiar black light that resembled a throbbing pulse. It was quite clear that it was constantly absorbing Madagascar's vital energy. Enlin gripped the hilt of the evil-slaying sword as his expression darkened. "Spit out everything you absorbed." Boom! A terrifying sword might erupted from the evil-slaying sword, which was transmitted into Enlin's hand in an attempt to vanquish him. Enlin clenched his fist, and an indescribable might instantly dispersed the evil-slaying sword's sword might. Even the demon emperor's sword spirit was instantly wiped out by this destructive aura. The sword began to tremble, and the vital energy it had absorbed began to flow toward Madagascar's body. Soon, her face began to regain color, and her skin began to become delicate and smooth. "Enlin, how did you?" Madagascar felt her body rejuvenated, and her beautiful eyes couldn't help but widen as she looked at the man in front of her in disbelief. Enlin smiled gently. "Teacher, bear with it." After saying this, he abruptly pulled the evil-slaying sword out of Madagascar's body. Ewing bit his lower lip tightly. The intense pain came, but he still couldn't help but let out a groan. However, in the blink of an eye, her wounds stopped hurting. Madagascar stared blankly at the palm that had patted her chest. A white light appeared on the palm. This was the most basic of healing immortal spells, but when Enlin used it, he was actually able to directly heal the wound that still contained the power of the return to void stage. At this moment, an extremely terrifying energy descended from the sky. The Dark Knight Monarch finally began her second attack. She had already confirmed that this small cultivator was a mighty figure who had been concealing his true strength. Thus, for this attack, she immediately unleashed her most powerful divine ability, Darkness of Origin. A black canopy of heaven crashed down toward Enlin, as if the black sky was about to descend and obliterate everything in this world. Countless human cultivators were shocked to see that the sky was about to collapse, and they all fled into the distance with no regard for their own safety. Even the Blood Tribe warriors fled the battlefield with no regard for their lives. It was quite clear that this attack was an area of effect attack. It was an indiscriminate obliteration of all living beings on the ground. Has the Dark Knight Monarch gone insane? How could she use such a technique? She doesn't care about our lives at all. Stop talking, let's run. In contrast to the Blood Tribe's grumbling, the human cultivators turned pale with fright. My God, just what kind of being is that black-winged woman? How could she know such a terrifying spell technique? We're only here to stop the Demon Emperor's plan. How did we end up provoking such a terrifying enemy? It's over. Fellow Cultivator Enlin and the others are at the center of the spell technique. Forget about fellow Cultivator Enlin, even we won't be able to escape from this despairing technique. Taoist priest Xiun of Wudong sect shook his head with a regretful expression. This boundless black canopy of heaven left no chance of escape. The canopy of heaven was currently descending, and had already engulfed the surrounding snowy mountains. Even Earth Immortal Ming Yuan had stopped his battle with the Blood God, and there was a look of indignation in his eyes as he stared at this devastating attack. Enlin, behind you! Madagascar knew that Enlin's current situation was different from usual, but she still couldn't help but warn him when she saw this devastating attack. Don't worry. Enlin nodded, and without even turning his head, he slapped his palm toward the sky. Bam! The sky was shattered by his palm. No, to be more precise, it was the Dark Night Monarch's primordial darkness. That devastating attack was dispersed by a casual slap from Enlin just like that. There was no frightening might, no technique that could change the color of heaven and earth. It was as if he had just casually swiped his palm, and the dark night canopy of heaven was naturally erased. The overwhelming pressure in the sky instantly dissipated. The starry sky and full moon reappeared in the clear sky. Countless cultivators and blood tribe cultivators raised their heads and stared blankly at the scene before them, completely unable to come to their senses. Madagascar covered her mouth and exclaimed softly as she stared at Enlin in disbelief. Done. Enlin nodded, and the white light in his hand dissipated. Master, your injuries have completely healed. I'll avenge you now. Madagascar nodded blankly upon hearing this. Enlin smiled lightly before turning his gaze toward the sky again. The Dark Night Monarch's snowy white face was filled with shock, and she could no longer maintain her composure. The Dark Night Monarch's primordial darkness was one of her most powerful divine abilities, but it had been shattered by a casual slap from this man. How could she maintain her composure? Who are you? Who am I? Enlin looked up at the black-robed woman in the sky and spoke in a cold voice. I am Teacher Yu Ying's disciple, Enlin. He took a step forward and soundlessly appeared in front of the Dark Night Monarch. The Dark Night Monarch's pupils contracted, and before she could react, the inky black evil-slaying sword had already pierced into her chest. An extremely terrifying restrictive force completely sealed off her power. The Dark Night Monarch's inky black eyes stared at the indifferent man in front of her, and waves of shock surged through her heart. She couldn't even see how Enlin had appeared in front of her. Spatial teleportation? No, spatial teleportation would definitely cause spatial fluctuations. However, the man in front of her had already arrived in front of her with a single step. He ignored distance and space, as if everything was as it should be. I'm going to make you suffer 100-fold, 1,000-fold for what you've done to Teacher. Enlin looked at the woman with a cold expression as the evil-slaying sword began to absorb the Dark Night Monarch's blood essence in a frenzy. Ah! The Dark Night Monarch's body began to tremble. Her energy, cultivation base, and life force began to flow away at a rapid rate, and her consciousness was also being whittled away bit by bit. Enlin even magnified this pain to no end. An indescribable pain engulfed her entire body, and she let loose a heart-wrenching cry. Master Dark Knight! The handsome man guarding the inky black passageway was enraged to the extreme upon seeing this. He spread open his huge black wings and flew toward Enlin with a silver spear in his hand. Stop right there! The man thrust his spear forward, and a spear projection flashed through the air, painting the entire sky white. Shut up! Enlin pointed a finger at the man with his left hand. Crack, the spear projection, the spear, and the man's body. All of them were instantly annihilated between heaven and earth, leaving not a single trace behind. Taoist priest Su Yun, Taoist Yu Mu, and Spirit Stone all stared blankly at the scenes unfolding before their eyes. That man was a powerful being from the Dark Wing tribe who could easily defend against all three of them on his own, but he was annihilated by Enlin with a single finger? The remaining Blood tribe warriors had already been scared out of their wits by Enlin, and all of them fled for their lives. Enlin made a grabbing motion toward heaven and earth. The sky as a net, and the earth as a slaughter. Boom! Heaven and earth trembled violently. An absolute restrictive power descended from the sky, immobilizing all of the Blood tribe warriors in place. Immediately afterward, a power imbued with the power to annihilate everything rose from the earth. It mercilessly pulverized the bodies of the Blood Tribe warriors. Even the Blood Gods, who possessed extremely powerful life force, were annihilated by the power of the earth. The Blood Tribe army was annihilated with a single palm. Chapter 95. The human cultivators were all stunned into a daze after witnessing the man's nature-defying methods. Is he really the Enlin I know? The Poison Lord is so terrifying. It's over, my sword still has his blood on it, will he come after me? The cultivators on the ground discussed spiritedly among themselves. However, there was no doubt that they revered the figure in the sky like a god. In contrast, the Dark Knight Monarch, who had once given them nightmares, was now extremely weak. Her features were gradually aging, her inky black hair had turned snowy white, and her aura had also become fainter and fainter. Her power, consciousness, cultivation base, and life were all about to dissipate. She could no longer feel pain, only despair toward death. In the past, I viewed you as an ant. But now, I'm probably also an ant in your eyes, right? The Dark Knight Monarch spoke in a raspy voice. She no longer had any power to resist. She was once the supreme monarch of the Dark-Winged tribe, but now she was being stepped on like an ant. Enlin shook his head as he gazed at the dying woman and spoke indifferently. I won't use my strength to determine a person's existence. In my eyes, you're just a sinner who deceived my master. Just like how Master Yuing doesn't treat me differently because of our cultivation bases. In her eyes, I'm her student. Dark Knight Monarch. Her dark eyes slowly dimmed, and a hint of indiscernible loneliness flashed across her eyes. Enlin didn't waste any more words and slashed down with his evil-slaying sword. The Dark Knight Monarch's body was completely pulverized by this slash, disappearing from the world. The black insignia on Enlin's forehead began to fade. He grabbed the storage ring left behind by the Dark Knight Monarch and continued forward, arriving in front of the pitch-black passageway. This should be the passageway leading to the Dark-Winged tribe. What a pity, if I had enough time, I could have gone there. Enlin looked at this passageway and threw a punch. Gotcha! The passageway shattered from his punch and finally began to collapse. It's over, Enlin said softly, and the black mark on his forehead began to disappear. In an instant, he felt that he had lost all his strength. His body went limp and a great sense of exhaustion hit him. Then, his vision went black and he fainted on the ground. Su Xiaolan and the others rushed to Enlin anxiously and helped him up. After confirming that his vital signs were normal, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily, he didn't explode this time. Su Xiaolan looked at Enlin with lingering fear, and the nervous expression on her face eased a little. The terrifying self-destruction of the Finger of Heaven's path was still vivid in his mind. If Enlin really blew up, they really wouldn't be able to do anything. Enlin has created another miracle. Fate is such a wonderful thing. Earth Immortal Ming Yuan looked at Enlin with amazement and satisfaction on his face. Every time he saw this student create trouble, his understanding of fate would become more thorough. Perhaps he would be able to break through to the Return to Void stage after 2 or 3 more of this. What no one noticed was that just as the black mark on Enlin's forehead disappeared, something that transcended matter and was not within the rules of the Great Tao left his body. It passed through the mortal world and merged into the Tai Chu continent. The world was still the same, and the living beings on the Tai Chu continent wouldn't notice this change. However, the world had changed, and some things seemed to become more reasonable. In the central region of the Tai Chu continent, there was a region filled with ancient sinister devils. The snake-tailed woman opened her eyes, which were filled with the stars of the Great Tao. In her hand, the rainbow heavenly stone suddenly emitted a dazzling light, purifying all the sinister devils within a radius of 50 kilometers. The mending of the heavens has begun. Looks like I have to hurry. The woman flew on a rainbow cloud, and her body flashed as she moved toward a place further away from the continent. 3 days later, Enlin woke up. He felt his body, and it was still as good as before. Many human cultivators heard about Enlin's awakening, and all came to visit him. Slowly, gifts began to pile up in Enlin's room. This scene was very similar to the last time when he woke up from his self-detonation. However, this time, it was even crazier than the last time. After all, not only did Enlin display heaven-defying power this time. On the other hand, he was the savior of this group of human cultivators. If it weren't for Enlin, they would probably all have died at the hands of the Dark Knight Monarch. These cultivators naturally weren't stingy toward their savior, and they gave him many good things. The sect leaders of the Dragon Tiger sect, Wudong sect, Shangqing sect, and Kunlun sect also came to visit and gave him 3 storage rings. These were all items left behind by the Blood God. Enlin didn't pick them up at the time, so they helped him pick them up. That's right, these blood gods were all killed by Enlin with a single palm strike. The mighty figures of the cultivation world were only there to help Mother Nature pick up the treasures. Lin Yi also returned. He was the one who discovered the Blood Tribe army in advance, then cut off his connection with the outside world and hid in the vicinity of the enemy. He only reconnected with the outside world when the Blood Tribe was about to make their move, thus leading to that battle. After that, the Dark Knight Monarch used the realm-piercing nail to force her way into the spell formation and met up with the Demon Emperor and the others who had already entered the mystic realm. She made the evil-slaying sword give up its original sword spirit and made the Demon Emperor its new sword spirit. Thus, the evil-slaying sword successfully broke free from the sword spirit purification suppression of the 3rd-level spell formation and returned to the world. The script was supposed to be the Dark Knight Monarch wielding the evil-slaying sword and drinking the blood of all the human cultivators. However, an Enlin appeared. No one knew how Enlin suddenly became so powerful. Even now, everyone was still very confused. Of course, everyone had their own secret. If Enlin didn't say anything, Su Xiaolan and the others wouldn't ask. Within the room, Madagascar looked at Enlin with a curious expression and adjusted his red-rimmed glasses as an intelligent glint flashed across his eyes. "Student Enlin, your hacks are getting more and more exaggerated." Advancing from the Zeroth stage Dao body to the 10th stage Dao body in a single year, this has already broken the record of our Xiuxian United University, but this is only the smallest of your hacks. Enlin's lips twitched upon hearing this, and he was speechless. Madagascar's eyes narrowed into a smile, and the curve of his lips was as perfect as a crescent moon. In the free-for-all battle, that finger-jabbing immortal spell was comparable to an attack from a celestial immortal. This hack was also very interesting, but it had a side effect. Then, your blood was also a hack that could poison the Blood Tribe to death. Enlin listened to Madagascar's explanation, and even he felt like he had gone overboard. Why was he so powerful? But what shocked me the most was the battle in the ancient Jade Pond. The power you unleashed was far too unreal to be able to completely crush the Dark Knight Monarch of the Dark Wing tribe. As she said this, she inched her beautiful face closer to Enlin's. Her breath was fragrant and fragrant. "Tell me, did that hack have any side effects?" Enlin's heart trembled upon hearing this, but he maintained a mischievous smile on his face. Of course there were side effects. "What side effects?" Madagascar asked worriedly. The side effects were... Enlin wore a mysterious expression before continuing. "I was unconscious for 3 days. Earth Immortal Yu Ying blinked her beautiful eyes. Finally, she slapped her forehead and sighed. "Fine, you win, have a good rest, I'm going out now. Sigh, it's just a fifth of my lifespan. 100 becomes 80, 10,000 becomes 8,000. One's lifespan increases as one's rank increases, so it's not a big deal." Enlin shook his head as he watched Madagascar leave. He tossed aside the messy thoughts in his mind and began to calculate his rewards. Chapter 96. First of all, there were the gifts from the human cultivators. To be honest, after witnessing Enlin's nature-defying battle prowess, the cultivators didn't even dare to give him any gift. After all, he was high and mighty. How could the Poison Lord take a liking to their little gift? In the end, it was Su Xiaolan and the others who came to their aid, saying that Enlin's true cultivation base was indeed only of the 10th stage Dao body. It was due to some special reason that he was able to temporarily unleash that kind of power. Hearing this, the cultivators were instantly reassured, and they threw their gifts at Enlin with no regard for their lives. Soon, the entire room was filled with all kinds of items. Enlin counted these gifts as he put them into his storage ring. It had to be said, this process was really tiring. He really felt like his hands were getting tired from counting money, but he couldn't stop. There were a total of 326 spirit pills. These spirit pills had all kinds of effects, but they were generally helpful for cultivation, as well as replenishing blood and vital energy. The ranks of the pills ranged from 4th to 9th rank. There were a total of 72 talismans. Talismans were talismans that cultivators injected their power into. The user would then hold the talisman in their hands and release the power within the talisman in one go. This kind of talisman had the effect of defeating an enemy by surprise. However, the process of creating talismans was extremely complicated and mentally taxing. This was a technical job, and it required a certain level of aptitude to create good talismans. For example, some cultivators with insufficient aptitude might only be of the spirit nurturing stage, but they could only create talismans with the power of the Dao body stage. On the other hand, some extremely talented cultivators might only be of the Dao body stage, but they could create talismans with the power of the spirit nurturing stage. Enlin looked at the pile of talismans, not knowing how powerful they were. However, these talismans were all created by cultivators of at least the spirit nurturing stage. The power unleashed by activating the talismans should at least be stronger than his own power. Among them, there were a dozen or so talismans that were created by mighty figures of the soul formation stage. Enlin took out 3 talismans with the image of a yin-yang symbol on them. There was also a note stuck on each talisman. Taoist Priest Xiun. 3 meticulously crafted talismans. When activated, they can block a full power strike from a soul formation middle stage cultivator. Although I have one more than my other 3 old friends, this also represents my respect for fellow Taoist Enlin. Please accept it. Then, he took out 3 talismans that contained extremely strong sword intent, and there was still a note on them. Spirit Child Sure of the Kunlun Immortal Sect. 3 sword talismans, when activated, are comparable to the full power attack of an early-stage soul formation cultivator. Although it's one more than my other 3 old friends, it's also a token of my appreciation. Please accept it. Enlin. Then, there were 3 more talismans with cranes on them, with the same label, Celestial Master Zhang, 3 exorcism talismans. They contain powerful lightning technique. Strike anyone you don't like. Although I have one more than my other 3 friends, I still have to give this extra spot to fellow Taoist Enlin. Please accept it. Finally, there were 4 talismans that exuded a vast aura, and there was still a note on them. Taoist Yumu. 4 killing talismans that I painstakingly crafted. Compared to my other 3 old friends, I have twice as many talismans and twice as much love. Please accept it, fellow Taoist Enlin. Enlin almost spat out a mouthful of blood when he saw this. Kindly accept the talismans, please take them back. He still couldn't forget the scene of Taoist Yumu slashing his wrist and the blood splattering all over his face. That was too terrifying. After looking at the 4 big shots notes, he finally understood what was going on. The 4 of them had most likely agreed in advance to give each of them 2 talismans. What he didn't expect was that all 3 of them had secretly added an extra talisman as a token of their appreciation. In the end, the crazy Taoist Yumu was more skillful and added twice as many talismans to take first place. Enlin looked at the 13 talismans, and his heart bloomed with joy. Talismans personally crafted by soul formation stage cultivators. These were all life-saving measures. After putting away the talismans, he also put the formation discs, spirit stones, and spirit medicines that the other cultivators had given him into his storage ring. Spirit stones were rare on Earth, and he had only received a little over 3,000 spirit stones this time. As for the formation discs and spirit medicines, there wasn't anything special about them. Finally, his gaze fell on the 3 storage rings of the blood gods. The demon emperor's storage ring had already disappeared, but there was one more blood god than he had expected. These storage rings had already been refined by Madagascar, and they were silently placed on the table. This was where the blood gods stored their treasures, so what kind of treasures could there be inside? And Lin's heart surged with excitement, and he picked up one of the storage rings and began to examine its contents. This was an ordinary storage ring with a radius of only 10 feet. Several hundred spirit stones. I can understand that Earth is poor 2 high-rank magic tools. A spirit pill that exuded 4th-grade energy fluctuations gone, and Lin was dumbstruck. He held the storage ring in his hand in a daze and fell into deep thought. Was this really the storage ring of the mighty blood god? It wasn't a fake, was it? Unwilling to give up, he picked up another storage ring. Within a radius of 10 feet, there were over 1,000 spirit stones, and there was also a very handsome red robe gone hurl. What do I need this storage ring for? And Lin was fuming with rage. F***ck. They were the blood gods. How could they have so few things? With a last shred of hope, he opened the 3rd storage ring. There were over 10,000 spirit stones in this storage ring. Furthermore, the spirit stones filled the entire storage ring. So, there was no space left for anything else. And Lin looked up at the sky and heaved a long sigh. He took out the contents of the 3 storage rings and placed them into his own storage ring. Perhaps 10,000 spirit stones was a huge sum of money to a soul formation stage cultivator on Earth. However, Lin really didn't feel anything. Instead, he felt very dejected. As for these 3 empty storage rings, he would give them to his father, Tian Lingling and Dongfang Shui. They would be very happy to receive them. Finally, he turned his attention to a pitch-black storage ring. The storage ring of the Dark Knight Monarch, one of the 12 monarchs of the Dark Wing tribe. He unleashed his divine sense and began to inspect the storage ring. Within a radius of 1,000 feet, a smile appeared on Lin's face. Just this 1,000 feet in radius indicated that this storage ring was a supreme-grade storage ring that was worth 300,000 spirit stones. Within the storage ring, there were over 100 spirit stones that glowed with a white light. There were a few spirit stones. Wait, why is it white? And Lin focused his gaze, and a wide grin immediately appeared on his face. Holy F***ck. It's vital stones. Ordinary spirit stones contained an extremely dense amount of wandering vital energy. Vital stones, on the other hand, contained vital energy that was so concentrated that it was visible to the naked eye. The ratio of the value of the two was 1 to 10,000. Normal cultivators would explode and die if they absorbed the vital energy contained within vital stones. Only those who reached the return to void stage could safely absorb vital energy of this level. Over 100 vital stones, which meant that he now had over 1,000,000 spirit stones. My God! And Lin was feeling a little dizzy. He was already delirious from this sudden burst of happiness. He then continued to inspect the items within the storage ring. There weren't many items inside, but all of them were supreme grade. Compared to this storage ring, the Blood God's storage ring was like an uncivilized country bumpkin. 7th grade immortal pill, Dragon Soul Pill. This pill was pure white and translucent, and there was the faint sound of a dragon's roar revolving around it. It could enhance the power of the consumer's consciousness and could be consumed by cultivators at or above the soul formation stage. Starless Sky of Slaughter Formation Disc. Unknown rank and power. Even the divine inspection technique was unable to detect this item. It could only detect its name, Realm-Piercing Nail. a powerful weapon that could pierce through space or spell formations. According to Madagascar, this was an immortal tool, evil-slaying sword. A top-of-the-line immortal tool. Unfortunately, the demonic sword Spirit Emperor had already been slain by Enlin. It had the material of an immortal tool, but no sentience, so it could only be considered a pseudo-immortal tool. There was also a piece of clothing with a label that hadn't been removed yet. This was a high-rank spirit tool crafted by Shinguzi himself. Exclusive protective clothing, jade barley ink garment. This was a protective spirit tool. With it, he would be much safer when fighting with enemies in the future. Unfortunately, this was a piece of female clothing. Chapter 97. Actually, it was understandable that he would see such a beautiful and exquisite dress in the ring. The Dark Knight Monarch was a woman, so it was normal for her to have a high-rank spirit weapon, the jade barley ink garment. Unfortunately, she didn't even get a chance to wear it before it fell into Enlin's hands. The label hadn't even been removed yet. Since he couldn't wear it, he would give it to a girl. But who should he give it to? Enlin was a little troubled. In his mind, he actually had two candidates. One was Su Xiaolan and the other was Madagascar. Su Xiaolan was very good to him and had helped him countless times. Although it was because of their good relationship, he still had to do something, right? However, after seeing Earth Immortal Yu Ying block the sword for Enlin couldn't help but want to give this robe to her. He always had a thought. Maybe if Teacher Yu Ying had this dress, that terrifying scene wouldn't happen again. He thought about it, but he couldn't think of anyone to give it to. Finally, he felt that he should start with respecting his teacher. When he gave the dress to Madagascar, Madagascar was very touched, but he refused. Enlin, I have never accepted a gift from a student during my teaching career. Even you can't make me make an exception. Enlin took the dress back resentfully, then went to Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan saw this beautiful and exquisite jade barley ink garment and was very fond of it. But when she realized that it was a high-rank spirit weapon for protection, she refused to accept it no matter what. Her reason was that this dress was too expensive. What was a high-rank spirit weapon? It was a magic treasure second only to immortal weapons. An attack-type high-grade spirit weapon was already very precious, and a defensive high-grade spirit weapon was in existence that was as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. Even the sect leaders of large immortal sects might not have a defensive high-rank spirit weapon. Yet, Enlin gave away this high-grade spirit artifact just like that. Su Xiaolan really didn't have the face to accept it just like that. She would feel ashamed to accept it. Enlin gloomily walked out of Su Xiaolan's room. Why was it so hard to give her clothes? What if he couldn't deliver the clothes? He couldn't possibly waste them. Should I ask Big Brother Cheng if he wants it? Xianyuan Cheng looked at the women's clothing that Enlin had sent over, and his face was filled with black lines. Enlin, please put yourself in my shoes. No. Please don't put me in the same category as you. I'm not a crossdresser. Just like that, Enlin was chased out by Xianyuan Cheng. Enlin was very disappointed. This was the first time he had met someone who didn't accept gifts, and he had even met 3 of them at once. Was it too expensive? He held the jade barley ink garment in his hands. The material was light and felt good to the touch. Perhaps it would be very comfortable to wear. Damn it! What was he thinking? No, he had to give it away. Something bad would happen if he kept it with him. Enlin walked into Su Xiaolan's room again. Su Xiaolan was leaning back in her chair with her long hair tied up behind her back. She was scrolling through Taobao on her phone. Huh? Why are you here again? She was a little surprised to see that Enlin had returned with a set of clothes. Xiaolan, you have to keep this. Enlin handed the jade barley ink garment to Su Xiaolan. This dress is super suitable for you. If you put it on, you'll definitely look like a celestial maiden that walked out from an ink painting. Try it if you don't believe me. Su Xiaolan. Will the clothes bite you if they're in your storage ring? Su Xiaolan rolled her eyes at Enlin. She was a little exasperated at his insistence on giving her clothes. They won't bite me, but they'll corrode my mind. Enlin replied honestly. Su Xiaolan's heart finally softened at the sight of his sincere expression. She waved her hand. Alright, I really have to give it to you. I'll take it, alright? But I'm buying this dress from you. A normal high-rank defensive spirit tool costs around 400,000 spirit stones. We're friends, so I'll pay you back 300,000 spirit stones in the future. How's that? Su Xiaolan knew that Enlin definitely wouldn't accept it if she offered 400,000 spirit stones, so she lowered the price a little. No, we're close friends. Super friendship price, 100,000 spirit stones. Enlin said with a determined expression. There's such a thing as close friends? Su Xiaolan blushed slightly. Alright, but I don't have that many spirit stones in my storage ring right now. I'll pay you back when we get back to the sect. Haha, there's no need to worry about money. I'm a tycoon now. Enlin handed the dress to Su Xiaolan with a smile on his face. A huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders, and his entire body felt a lot more relaxed. After receiving the new dress, he naturally had to try it on. When Su Xiaolan reappeared before Enlin in the jade barley ink garment, he was once again stunned by her beauty. Her eyes were like limpid autumn waters, her lips were red without lipstick, and her eyebrows were green without makeup. The light green dress on her body made her appear elegant and transcendent. Enlin gave her a thumbs up. Awesome. Big sister celestial maiden, let's take a photo together? A graceful smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. Then, she spoke in a seductive voice. Sure, but it'll cost 100,000 spirit stones. No problem. 2 days later, Baiyun Temple. It was time to return to the celestial court, and Enlin and the others arrived at the Taoist temple again. And Mingchuan, Tian Lingling, Huang Shanshan, Dongfang Shui, the Savior, Green River Sword Immortal, and the others all came to bid farewell. Enlin gave the 3 storage rings to his father, Tian Lingling and Dongfang Shui. In the storage ring for his father, there were also many pills that he felt he could use, as well as some life-saving talismans. Little Lin, focus on your cultivation and don't force yourself. Remember, your life is the most important thing. And Mingchuan spoke patiently. I know, Dad, you have to focus on your cultivation as well. And Lin couldn't help but burst into laughter as he felt like this line was a little hilarious. And Mingchuan couldn't help but glare at Enlin upon seeing his son's flippant expression. Tian Lingling was moved to the point of tears. This was the first time she had received such an expensive gift. Wah! Fake Taoist priest, you have to come back often. Looking at the weeping young girl, Enlin couldn't help but rub her soft chestnut-colored hair. Little Loli, are you really 18 years old? He asked with a chuckle. Why do you cry so much? You're the Loli. I'm cute, I'm adorable, I love to cry, what's wrong with that? If you call me Loli again, I'll upload a photo of you in female clothing to the group chat. Tian Lingling immediately retorted upon hearing the term, Little Loli. Enlin's lips twitched upon hearing this. He had thought Tian Lingling had become more adorable, but now that he thought about it, she was still as sly as ever. Dongfang Shui covered her mouth and chuckled lightly. Lingling, didn't you upload that photo to the group a while ago? Enlin. Alright, who was this adorable Loli? No one accepted it. He was going to strangle her to death. Soon, the teleportation spell formation of the Baiyun Temple began to glow with a dazzling light. Enlin and the others stood within the spell formation and waved farewell to everyone on Earth. In the end, their figures disappeared amid a flash of white light. Chapter 98. A white light flashed past the southern heavenly gate. Enlin and the others began to appear. There, a man with long silver hair was looking at them with a smile on his face. Madagascar and Earth, Immortal Ming Yuan immediately bowed in salute. We pay our respects to Emperor Ziwei. Lin and the others immediately followed suit upon hearing that the man before them was Emperor Ziwei. There's no need for such formalities. Thank you for your hard work. Emperor Ziwei's expression was cold and stern, but his voice was extremely gentle, as if it had a soothing power that alleviated the anxiety in everyone's hearts. Lin finally raised his head and looked curiously at the silver-haired man. This was the first time he had seen a true god, and he was extremely excited. As for that old man from before, who knew if he was a true god? After all, he hadn't even told Lin his name. As one of the 4 emperors of the celestial court, Emperor Ziwei was known as the Lord of the Stars and the Master of all creations. Apparently, he was proficient in all kinds of immortal spells and was the ancestor of all immortal spells. Apparently, he was in control of heaven and earth and was well versed in the tribulations of the universe. How could Lin not be excited to see such a badass figure appear before him? I've heard about what happened on Earth. You completed your mission very well. The 3rd level spell formation was not set up perfectly, and it was my mistake that the Dark Wing tribe took advantage of it. I will now give each of you a pill refinement invitation. Take this invitation to the Do Shui Palace, and you will be able to refine an immortal pill below the 6th grade for free. Please accept this gift. Emperor Ziwei waved his right hand as he spoke, and a golden invitation appeared in everyone's hands. Thank you, Emperor Ziwei. Everyone was ecstatic to see the invitation and expressed their gratitude. This was an immortal pill, and each one of them was worth an entire city. Now they could ask someone from the Do Shui Palace to refine one for free. This was an extremely pleasant surprise. Emperor Ziwei nodded and turned toward Lin as a vast star map flashed through his eyes. Soon, his eyes became clear again, and the figure of a young man was reflected in his pupils. Classmate Lin, I've also heard about your exploit. You're a great contributor to this incident, so I'll give you the evil-slaying sword as a present. Lin faltered slightly upon hearing Emperor Ziwei's words. Actually, he had never intended to return the sword. However, since the North Pole Emperor had personally brought it up, he was naturally extremely grateful and thanked him again. Emperor Ziwei returned to the North Star Palace after taking care of matters here. Sigh, it's a pity for my lovely sword spirit. The silver-haired man sighed faintly. If he hadn't forcefully passed through the southern heavenly gate, the passageway would have collapsed. He had already rushed to Earth when the Level 3 formation was broken into. I didn't think that the Dark Wing tribe would have a way to enter Earth as well. I wonder how Her Majesty would react if she were to learn of this. An intrigued expression appeared on the man's face. In the Celestial Court Xiaoxian United University, the story of Lin and the others descending to the mortal world to carry out a mission had long spread throughout the campus. Originally, it was just a mission to reinforce the seal of the demonic pagoda and slay the Dark Knight monarch. It evolved into a legendary story of slaying the demon tribe, the blood tribe, and the Dark Knight monarch of the Dark Wing tribe. The members of Lin's team had long since been praised to the heavens by the students. Lin himself had also become a legendary figure in the university, with all sorts of legendary stories being sung about him. Stories about how he could hang a heavenly venerate in the sky and slay a demonic dragon in the sea. There were also stories about how he had slaughtered his way into the Dark Wing tribe's mobile castle, and so on. In any case, there were stories about both what he had done and what he hadn't done. After Wang Xuanzhan found out that Lin had slain the Dark Knight monarch, he immediately ran to the Academic Affairs office and begged the teacher to remove his number 1 spot on the Immortal Rankings board, saying that he couldn't afford to lose so much face. Well, these were actually all things that the teachers should be worrying about. The return of Lin and the others created a massive stir on the campus. It was all because Lin was too famous that he encountered a lot of trouble when he was distributing the items. The countless scorching gazes were still a small matter. However, there were some people asking for autographs, asking for photos, sending flowers, sending hearts. This gave Lin a huge headache. Fame was a terrible thing for men, and fat was a terrible thing for pigs. Lu Qianhuan didn't have much of a reaction to his glorious feat. After receiving the new version of the game, she immediately revamped it and forcefully abused him. Lin also asked Su Qianyun to deliver the snacks that you two requested. After all, only women could enter the Moon Palace. Men and dogs weren't allowed in. Not long after, Dabai also ran over to Zhao Huayin's house, holding hands with him. Dabai maintained his adorable and mighty beast form and wagged his furry tail as he spoke in an adorable manner. Lin, you're getting more and more badass. I want to be your beast pet, woof. Lin, Zhao Huayin. Lin thought back to the thrill of flying on dog kinesis flight. And then, he agreed without hesitation. Zhao Huayin ran to the washroom and closed the door with tears streaming down his face. Dogs can't be kept at home. He raised him so painstakingly, but he still had to marry someone. But I can't sign a contract with you yet. I have to return to the mythological beast sect in a few days to receive the inheritance. I'll sign a contract with you when I receive the inheritance and master the technique. Dabai stuck out his tongue and continued with a cheerful smile. No problem, I'm not in a hurry. Is Zhao Huayin going back with you? Lin asked with a smile. I also have to go back for a while to receive the sex reward. Zhao Huayin, who had just returned from the washroom, spoke. Once Dabai condensed his beast core, Zhao Huayin's mission as a caretaker would also be completed. He would also receive a generous mission reward when he returned to the mythological beast sect. Speaking of which, it was all thanks to Lin's inexplicable assistance that he was able to complete the mission. Thus, his feelings toward Lin could be described as a mixture of love and hate. After bidding farewell to Dabai and Zhao Huayin, Lin's life returned to normal. His cultivation life in the school was very ordinary. Apart from the fact that there were a lot more people paying attention to him during his studies, there wasn't much of a difference. On the other hand, Su Xiaolan complained all day that she didn't have a car to drive and that she couldn't experience the speed and passion of racing. She started to miss the things in the mortal world. Finally, near the end of her first year, she successfully broke through to the spirit-nurturing stage. This breakthrough satisfied her pursuit of speed and passion, and she raced with her flying sword every day. Once, she even dragged Lin with her, and raced with her flying sword in the sea of clouds at dusk. The two of them traversed through the beautiful sea of clouds, leaving a trail of pure white clouds in their wake. S-shaped curve flight, U-shaped turnaround flight, W-shaped mountain crossing flight, O-shaped 100-loop helix flight. That experience, once again, it triggered Lin's acrophobia and tachyphobia. That terrifying feeling of weightlessness was an obstacle that every cultivator who used sword kinesis flight had to overcome. As for Lin, it was clear that he was still unable to adapt. Not only was he unable to adapt, but his resistance became even stronger. He remembered that when he got off the flying sword, his legs were trembling and his throat was hoarse from all the shouting. At that time, he kind of missed Dabai. He missed the sense of security that came from lying on top of it and flying with dog kinesis flight. Soon, the first year of university life came to an end. The new students' end-of-year examinations were also officially announced. Chapter 99. This year's end-of-year exam was not much different from the previous years. There was a saying circulating around the school. First and second year students interact with wild beasts. Third and fourth year students interact with mosquitoes. Fifth year students interact with beautiful women. As for wild beasts, they naturally referred to the myriad mountain realm in the southern part of the kingdom of the Nine State. Ferocious beasts ran amok there. From time to time, beast tides would invade the stone dragon state in the southernmost part of the kingdom of the Nine States. Human cultivators were no pushovers either. They would often form armies to hunt in the mountains. Some mutant beasts were full of treasures. They were excellent materials for tool refinement and pill refinement. Not only would they be able to rid the world of evil, but they would also be able to reap many benefits. As for interacting with mosquitoes, they were no ordinary mosquitoes. They were what the students called the blood tribe. The blood tribe was located in the southwestern part of the Tai Chu continent. They loved to suck the blood of cultivators. How could the cultivators tolerate this? Of course they would slap them to death. The blood tribe had enemies all around them. They wanted to suck all kinds of blood. Not only human cultivators, but the monks from the Western Paradise and the Light Wing clan from the Holy Paradise were also on their menu. If it wasn't for the fact that the Dark Marshlands was a heavily polluted place, the blood tribe would have been wiped out several times already. The fifth-year students would interact with beautiful women. These beautiful women were even more ferocious. Although they wouldn't eat humans, they would freeze cultivators into cute ice sculptures and collect them. These beautiful women were called snow maidens. They were a species from the holy glacial lands in the northern part of the Tai Chu continent. The population of the holy glacial lands was quite large. However, they were all female. No one knew how they reproduced. The war between them and human cultivators had lasted for over 1,000 years. The celestial court would send out many troops to the northern part of the Wind Plain state every year. And Lin and the others were only first-year students. They didn't need to think too much about the future. They only needed to think about how to interact with wild beasts. Their end-of-year exam was led by their homeroom teacher, the Flying Sword God. They traveled to Ding, a city in the Chu River Prefecture of the Stone Dragon State. The Chu River Prefecture was one of the most dangerous prefectures in the Stone Dragon State. Powerful mutant beasts often appeared there. After all, they were all students of the first class. They had the strongest overall strength, so they naturally had the heaviest responsibilities. For the year-end test this time, the target of their class was to kill 3,000 beasts of all kinds within half a month. At first glance, it seemed like a lot, but when divided evenly among each student, it was only 30 per person. It was said that the freshmen and sophomores were allocated a total of 500,000. One could imagine how devastating the end-of-year test of Xiaoxian United University was for the beasts in the myriad mountain domain. Ferocious beasts were defined as wild beasts that could use the energy of the world to strengthen their bodies and were extremely aggressive towards humans. They were often the main force that formed the beast tide to invade the Stone Dragon province. Under normal circumstances, the Flying Sword God would not take action. He was only responsible for recording the performance of each student. If you perform well, the school will even reward you. But those rewards, how to put it, Tycoon and Lin didn't really care. The teleportation spell formation of the Celestial Court and Xiaoxian United University could teleport to any state in the Kingdom of the Nine States. After all the members of the first class had gathered on the teleportation spell formation, the Flying Sword God activated the teleportation spell formation. A dazzling white light enshrouded all the members. Immediately afterward, the world began to spin. The figures of 100 students appeared on another teleportation plaza. After appearing on the teleportation plaza of the Stone Dragon province, Lin's eyes widened with curiosity as he looked around. There were pavilions, terraces, and pavilions, as well as roads paved with bluestone. There were all kinds of carriages coming and going. The passers-by were either dressed in plain clothes or luxurious silk garments, all of them bustling about the market. "Wow, this really is an ancient scene," Lin exclaimed in amazement. Su Xiaolan rolled her eyes. "What do you mean ancient scenes? This is modern times." "It's just that the people of the Kingdom of the Nine States don't pay much attention to the development of science and technology. Even so, people still live free and unfettered lives. In an era where cultivation was flourishing, there really weren't many people who could indulge in scientific inventions. Furthermore, with the precedents set by the Purple Star civilization, the imperial families of some states had even formulated policies to suppress the development of science. The place they were currently at was the capital city of the Stone Dragon province, where the coiling dragon imperial family was located. The powers of the Kingdom of the Nine States were generally referred to as the One Day, Four Sects, and Nine Emperors. The imperial families of each state were extremely powerful in the cultivation world and controlled the resources of their respective states. And Lin remembered that Su Qianyun was the princess of the Greenwood imperial family of the Purple Star State. Her status was extremely noble. He looked into the distance. On a mountain shrouded in clouds and mist. Behind the clouds and mist, he could faintly make out a majestic palace. That was most likely the palace of the coiling dragon imperial family. If possible, Lin really wanted to go in and see what the palace of the cultivation world looked like. However, he didn't have the opportunity to do so now. After all, there was still a distance of over 500 kilometers between the capital city and the Ding, a city of the Chu River Prefecture. They didn't have the time to leisurely walk there. They were traveling over 500 kilometers in a day. You didn't hear wrong, they were indeed traveling over 500 kilometers in a day. The homeroom teacher said that this was also a part of cultivation and that they had to complete it. 100 kilometers was 500 kilometers, and the students finished running in 12 hours. In other words, each student had to reach a speed of over 40 kilometers per hour and then run for 12 hours straight. Could you imagine the scene of a group of students running over mountains and valleys? This really was the marathon of the cultivation world. In Class 1, the students with the lowest rank were all of the 9th stage Tao body. However, in the process of running over 500 kilometers, there were still a few students who were so tired that they fell flat on the ground and directly fainted. Lin had the Earth Lotus Supreme skill, a cultivation technique that could strengthen one's physique. Even so, he was sweating profusely and his legs were weak. When he saw the few people flying freely in the sky, his chest tightened even more. That's right, at this moment, the gap between cultivators of the Tao body stage and cultivators of the spirit nurturing stage was manifested. Others flew leisurely in the sky, while they could only run tirelessly on the ground. The number of cultivators of the spirit nurturing stage in their class had increased to 4. Apart from Xianyuan Cheng and Su Qianyun, the other newly advanced cultivators of the spirit nurturing stage were Su Xiaolan and Lu Zhan. Some of the students looked enviously at the 4 students in the sky. Only now did they deeply understand how wonderful it was to be able to fly on a sword. And Lin didn't look enviously at them. Was sword kinesis flight really that fun? No, sword kinesis flight was too small, too fast, and unstable. There was nothing around them, and there was nothing to obstruct their vision. Sure enough, furry and warm dog kinesis flight was the way to go. Sigh, if only Dabai was here, Lin thought with a melancholy expression. Chapter 100. When they arrived at Ding, a city of the Chu River Prefecture, they were greeted by the sight of a city wall that was over 100 feet tall. The city wall was constructed from black ironstone and was extremely sturdy. From afar, it looked as if a gigantic, pitch-black dragon was circling around the outer city. It appeared majestic and majestic. After the students arrived at their destination, they walked while leaning on the wall. They were so tired that their eyes turned dark and their legs turned to jelly. The soldiers guarding the city were also given a fright when they saw the 100 or so exhausted students. At this moment, Flying Sword God landed lightly on his flying sword and presented a document to the soldiers. After the soldiers saw the contents of the document, they instantly became extremely respectful. Not only did they open the city gates, but they also notified the city lord. The city lord of Ding and city, Zheng Qianqiu, received the news and personally came to welcome them. He also held a banquet to welcome them. The students had expended a lot of energy after running for 1,000 miles. They were now both tired and hungry. They were like wolves and tigers at the banquet. Each of them had the battle prowess of 4 or 5 people. What did this mean? It meant that they had to entertain 400 or 500 people at the same time. Mr. Ling Xiao, your students have such good appetites. Jing Qianqiu wiped the sweat from his forehead and exclaimed in astonishment. Flying Sword God smiled lightly. They ran for over 1,000 miles today. It's normal for them to eat a little more. Jing Qianqiu almost wet his pants when he heard this. Weren't most of these students at the Dao Body stage? Running for over 1,000 miles in a day? Even horses would die if they ran like this. He had initially thought that it was the students who were abnormal. Now it looked like it was the teachers who were abnormal. Then, Mr. Ling Xiao, are we going to hunt as usual tomorrow? Jing Qianqiu asked uncertainly. Of course. If you want resources, then arrange for more soldiers to follow behind us. Flying Sword God nodded and replied with a smile. Okay, I'll arrange it right away. Jing Qianqiu also smiled happily. Normally, hunting in the mountains was done in small groups. This was because too many people would alert the nearby mutant beasts with high vigilance. For example, the students brought by the Flying Sword God could be divided into a dozen elite teams. As long as they did not encounter any spirit beasts, they would be able to sweep through everything. At that time, he only needed to arrange for his soldiers to follow behind and collect the exotic beasts' precious corpses. That was quite a sum of money. It was equivalent to others fighting monsters at the front, while they picked up the dropped items from behind. Why not? However, he still understood the rules. The profits from the sale had to be split 50-50. The next day, Lin and the others left the city gates of Ding An City. The students were divided into 20 teams, each team consisting of 5 people. Lin was the team leader of one of the teams. His 4 team members were Luo Ziping, Miao Tian, Zhong Yongyan, and Sun Xinglian. Apart from Zhong Yongyan, who was of the 9th stage Dao Body, the other 3 team members were all of the 10th stage Dao Body. The 4 members were very happy to be assigned to Lin's team. Haha, I didn't expect that I would have the opportunity to hang out with Big Brotherin. This year-end test is a sure thing. Luo Ziping was a tall and strong man, and he laughed heartily at this time. Big Brotherin, how many mutant beasts are we going to kill today? Miao Tian was a very adorable short-haired girl. At this moment, she was staring intently at Lin with her large woof-woof eyes as she asked excitedly. Heh, would Big Brother be interested in mutant beasts? The ones he's taking us to kill should be spirit beasts, Zhong Yongyan said leisurely as he took out a fan and waved it. If Big Brother plans on hunting soul beasts or even immortal beasts, then don't bring us along. I'm afraid that I'll be shocked to death by a sneeze from one of them, Sun Xinglian said nervously. Lin's heart was stuffed with anxiety when he heard the words of his classmates. Holy F***ck, do these people really think I'm the legendary Great Godin? I'm also of the 10th stage Dao Body. Even if I see a spirit beast, I'll still have to run. In the end, after much persuasion, the other 4 team members finally accepted that he wouldn't be able to use his terrifying strength for the next few years. Right now, he was only a team leader of the 10th stage Dao Body. Just like that, the 5 of them set off toward the Myriad Mountain realm. In the barren mountains, mutant beasts roamed freely, and they would occasionally encounter rare spirit beasts. As for the beast core, Lin also asked Xianyuan Qing and Su Qianyun for help. The beast core was a collection of energy from a spirit beast, and it was similar to an organ that absorbed and converted energy. This thing didn't have much use for human cultivators. They didn't know why Lin wanted this thing, but since Lin had brought it up, they didn't mind helping Lin out. In the Myriad Mountain realm, Big Brotherin, that black longsword in your hand looks so cool. Why didn't I see you use this sword during the free-for-all battle? Miao Tian asked curiously as she followed behind Lin. Hearing this, Lin replied with a hint of disappointment, I actually snatched this sword from the Dark Knight Monarch. Sigh, it's a pity that the sword spirit was erased by me, so it's only a pseudo-immortal tool now. Hearing this, the 4 team members all drew a sharp intake of breath and looked at him with scorching eyes. Only a pseudo-immortal tool, these words deeply shocked them. As expected of great God, and this tone was really quite domineering. And Lin noticed the respectful expressions on the team members' faces and immediately came to a realization. Could it be that he had accidentally flexed just then? He knew that if he continued flexing like this, his team members would develop a reliance on him. When that time came, they might even be too lazy to fight mutant beasts and only care about cheering him on from the sidelines. With this in mind, he immediately put the evil-slaying sword into his storage ring and swapped it for the golden-glazed longsword. I don't really know how to use immortal tools. As expected, this high-rank magic tool is more convenient. And Lin nodded as he looked at the golden longsword in his hand. As long as the weapon was similar to everyone else's, then it wouldn't seem like he was flexing anymore. Big Brotherin, there's no need to explain, I understand. Luo Zipping smiled knowingly. Hide your weapon and leave your trump card. As expected of the number 1 student in our school. Zhong Yongyan nodded as he waved his fan. These trash mutant beasts aren't worthy of Big Brother and using that sword. Sun Xinglian spoke with an expression of admiration. As expected of great Godin, his every move exudes a domineering aura. Miao Tian's eyes lit up. Just like that, the 4 team members looked at Lin with even more reverence in their eyes. Lin. He felt like his every move had become extremely bad *SS ever since he gained this godly halo. PFFF. Right at this moment, he accidentally farted. The sound of his fart was quite loud, causing everyone to falter. Be careful. Right at this moment, Lin yelled and pushed Sun Xinglian aside. A huge python of 30 feet in length shot out from the bushes with its mouth wide open as it brushed past Sun Xinglian. A red glow erupted from Luo Zipping's fists as he punched toward the python's head. Boom! The python's head was flattened by the punch. At this moment, the flying disc in Miao Tian's hand flew through the air and sliced open its head. Phew! That was close, Big Brother, and thank you. Sun Xinglian patted her chest with lingering fear in her heart. Snake-type mutant beasts were all very adept at sneaking around. If they let their guard down for too long, they really would have been ambushed. Miao Tian walked over at this moment with an expression of admiration. As expected of Big Brotherin, it's all my fault for being too stupid. Lin. That's right. Luo Zipping also came over to chime in. I didn't react to that fart either. So that fart was to warn us to be careful. Zhong Yongyan waved his fan and analyzed with an expression as if he had seen through everything. If he had warned us directly, he would have alerted the snake. However, if he used the human body's natural reaction of farting to warn us, the python wouldn't have been alerted. Big Brother An's every move was made with much thought in mind. Unfortunately, we still weren't able to comprehend it. Sun Xinglian's face was full of self-blame. Lin stood rooted to the spot with a dumbstruck expression. What the F***ck? I just suddenly farted, and there's such a deep meaning behind it? I'm bowing to you brainless fans. Chapter 101. Lin suppressed the frustration in his heart and continued onward. The python carcass behind them would be taken care of by the soldiers. In the meantime, they encountered a large saber-backed tiger, a rainbow lizard that exuded a poisonous mist, and a giant rhinoceros that was 30 feet tall. These ferocious-looking monsters were all swept aside by Lin and the others without any resistance. Sigh, there really isn't a single one who can fight. Luo Zipping stretched his muscular body and spoke with some dissatisfaction. If we encounter a spirit beast, please show your prowess, Student Luo. Zhong Yongyan smiled lightly, but there was a hint of mockery on his face. Big Brotherin, don't do anything. I want to see just how bad *SS Student Luo is. Miao Tian furrowed her brows. Agreed. Sun Xinglian looked coldly at Luo Zipping and nodded. Luo Zipping blushed and apologized to Lin. I'm sorry, Big Brotherin, I shouldn't have flexed in front of you. Lin. F***ck. How did I get involved in this? What did I do? This was only a small interlude. The group continued to traverse the mountains. In half a month, each person had to kill 30 beasts. If they were assigned to a team, they only needed to kill 10 beasts a day to reach the target. However, they weren't satisfied with just reaching the target. This was the end of the year test, and if they exceeded the target, the school would reward them. Although Enlin didn't really care about those rewards, his team members were looking forward to it. Thus, after some discussion, the team decided that their target for today was to kill 20 beasts a day. Soon, they arrived at a swamp. There were many mosquitoes and poisonous creatures here. Miao Tian and Sun Xinglian clearly hated this kind of place, and they both furrowed their brows. Big brotherin, how about we go around, it's so dirty here. Miao Tian pouted and waved her hands to chase away the mosquitoes around her. Enlin also felt that there was no need to go through the swamp. He was just about to agree when the sounds of battle suddenly came from the distance. There's movement up ahead, let's go take a look. The 20 teams were divided into different routes. Logically speaking, they wouldn't meet any other team members on this route. Therefore, the previous battles had piqued his interest. When the team members heard their captain's words, they all nodded seriously and followed behind Enlin, rushing towards the battlefield. Boom! The fireball exploded. One of the giant blood-sucking mosquitoes was forced back by the explosion, but the other giant mosquito quickly flew behind a man, its sharp proboscis piercing into his body like a sharp sword. Chunda! A muscular man clad in beast skin cried out in alarm. The man who was stung by the giant mosquito widened his eyes and his body rapidly shrank. In an instant, he was sucked dry. After eating its fill, the giant mosquito pulled out its mouthpiece and flew into the air. It then continued to observe the 6 people on the ground. On the ground, there were already more than 10 men who had their blood sucked dry. And in the sky there were still more than a dozen of these giant mosquitoes. Leader, let's escape. A man wielding a long sword trembled as he watched his companions being sucked dry one by one. Run? Do you think you can outrun these mosquitoes? The muscular man clad in beast skin had an enraged expression in his eyes. Even if I die, I'll drag a few mosquitoes down with me. A giant mosquito flew through the air, and its sharp proboscis pierced toward the man's heart. Yah! The man wielded 2 axes and hacked toward the giant mosquito. The surrounding vital energy surged violently, and a white light burst forth from the axes, directly slicing the head of a giant mosquito in front of him into pieces. Right at this moment, the man's back was pierced by the proboscis of 2 giant mosquitoes. Leader! The other team members were also entangled by the giant mosquitoes, and they could only yell in panic when they saw their leader being pierced by the giant mosquitoes. Boom! A golden fist instantly pulverized the 2 giant mosquitoes behind the muscular man clad in beast skin. Buzz, buzz, buzz! The surrounding giant mosquitoes suddenly became agitated, and several of them rushed toward another direction. There were new enemies there. However, before they could even attack, a sword flashed by and decapitated the giant mosquitoes. A beautiful woman with long hair shook off the blood on her sword and stared coldly at the 10 or so giant mosquitoes in front of her. She was Sun Xinglian from Enlin's team. One of the giant mosquitoes sensed that something was amiss and was just about to fly away when a flying wheel flew through the air and sliced its body in half. Miao Tian guided the flying wheel and continued to attack the other giant mosquito. Luo Ziping and Zhong Yongyan also joined the battle. Luo Ziping's fists were ferocious, and each strike was able to smash a giant mosquito to death. Zhong Yongyan waved his feather fan lightly, creating gusts of strong winds that trapped the giant mosquitoes before killing them. So powerful, the trapped men all exclaimed in shock as they watched the members of Enlin's team slaughter the giant mosquitoes. Soon, the dozen or so giant mosquitoes were all killed. Not a single one was spared. Are you all right? Enlin walked toward the muscular man clad in beast skin and asked worriedly. The man's body had been pierced by the giant mosquito's mouthpiece, and blood was flowing from the wound. "I'm fine, it's just a small wound. Thank you for saving me, fellow cultivators." There was a grateful expression on the brawny man's face as he bowed toward Lin and the others. The other men also bowed in gratitude. If it weren't for Lin and the others arriving in time, they would probably have already died to the giant mosquitoes. Lin shook his head with a smile. "It was nothing. Besides, we were on a mission to hunt mutant beasts. We killed a dozen or so mutant beasts in one go, so we've accomplished our goal for today." Miao Tian and the others also had satisfied expressions on their faces. It was truly troublesome to search for mutant beasts all over the mountains. Now that a dozen or so of them had appeared, they were naturally elated. Then, a dozen or so armored men appeared behind Lin and the others. They cut off the valuable parts of the giant mosquitoes and placed them into storage rings. "You're students from the Celestial Court?" The muscular man clad in beast skin couldn't help but ask in surprise when he saw this familiar combination of cultivators and soldiers. "That's right." Lin nodded and didn't try to hide anything. "No wonder you're only of the 10th stage Dao body, but you're able to display such astonishing battle prowess. So you're the prodigies of the Kingdom of the Nine States." The muscular man had a look of realization. Then, he hesitated for a while before continuing to speak to Lin and the others. "I have a deal. After we're done, you'll receive 6 9th-rank immortal fruit. Are you interested in cooperating with us?" Immortal fruits? Lin's eyes lit up. Although they were the lowest rank immortal fruits, their value was still immeasurable. "What deal?" "Let's hear it," Lin immediately said. The other team members also looked at the muscular man expectantly after hearing about the immortal fruit. The muscular man in beast skin spoke. "Our hunting team discovered a spirit mountain in the Myriad Mountain realm. On this spirit mountain grew a mysterious azure spirit blood tree, and there were already 9 immortal fruits on it. Unfortunately, with the golden-eyed Monkey King guarding the mysterious azure spirit blood tree, our hunting team has been unable to obtain those immortal fruit. Fellow cultivators, you're all powerful. If you work with us, we'll give you 6 immortal fruits after we're done. How about it? Every immortal fruit could cause countless cultivators to fight over it. 9 immortal fruits was definitely enough to shake the entire Stone Dragon state. If it weren't for the fact that Lin and the others had saved them and that they were students of the Celestial Court, they definitely wouldn't have revealed this information to the others. So, what's the strength of the golden-eyed Monkey King? Lin stroked his chin and asked. Around the spirit-nurturing intermediate stage. The muscular man in beast skin didn't hide anything. In reality, he didn't expect Lin and the others to be able to defeat the golden-eyed Monkey King. As long as they could stall it for a while, they could take advantage of the chaos to snatch the immortal fruit. However, Lin's next sentence made the muscular man and Luo Zipping wet their pants. "Deal." Lin chuckled and continued. "Luo Zipping will be in charge of killing the golden-eyed Monkey King, and we'll be in charge of plucking the immortal fruit. Let's go."